All right, so we're live with Jim Jesus and Mike. Mike's my bestie, and Jim's a pretty sweet YouTuber that I pretty much like ever since I don't know. He likes to shit on Esoteric Entity all day.
I don't.
So like he's super obsessed. Like it's all he talks about is Esoteric Entity.
Yeah, I love that whole like your whole entire social media timeline is dedicated to him, and then people go to my media and they're like, oh, there's one.
Well, I saw this meme right here. It's cartoon ANCAPs versus boomer lolberts.
That's something that I made a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, but that just feels like you're shitting on like all the trend of like Zoomers my age making like cartoon avatars and just getting up to the mic and just being like, have you ever read Rothbard?
And then
they're like
crossing your arms. Marxism
like
debunked.
A furry avatar.
Yeah.
Wow. It's like you've never heard of the fucking what the fuck is that argument? It's whatever, like the what's that Hayek argument? Fucking price signals or whatever. You know what I mean? Like those people.
Look at these pre-marginalist retards. Marxism debunked. Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah, they do like something like central planning never works or something like that. It's like, don't you know what you know about fucking Austrian economics? It's like, okay, dude. Yeah. It's not very fun. Sure, but yeah, I kind of liked your stuff. Apparently just shitting on like those dudes, like everyone hates you now, apparently. Like,
well, who cares?
That's true. Who gives a fuck?
I mean, like, who gives a fuck? I don't know if any of you guys started doing this to make friends. I mean, I kind of did, but I'm weird.
You did this to make friends? I don't think anybody has ever been friends with a libertarian.
No, we're all friendless.
I've made friends like this, though.
You have made friends? I guess we are friends. That's
not
true.
just like friends online, but like people, flesh friends I can go talk to. It's weird.
Gross. Yeah.
I'm gonna
imagine having real friends.
Yeah, I know. It's like really strange. I don't know how to handle this shit right now.
Yeah.
Pretty cringy, not gonna lie.
Pretty cringy.
Yeah, most of my content kinds to be more centered on fighting like libertarian ideas that I think aren't good.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of them, even though I am a libertarian.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of memes that kind of get circulated, and it goes with any kind of ideology. Any ideology has like little internal things that, that get kind of gets spread around, but no one really thinks about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you've been very critical of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You said you like it, and like like spiritually, you're a supporter of the NAP. You know, it's all fine and good, but you know.
As a rule of thumb,
I spiritually, it's a spiritual rule of thumb. That's pretty. I was watching your Disenthrall video earlier, so the one you did with Disenthrall. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that was a really good debate.
Yeah, I didn't actually get it all the way through, but yeah, it was pretty cool.
I think it went on for like 4 hours or something.
Yeah, that's the reason I haven't touched it. I only got like half hour in, so you know, don't have time for that. You did a really cool video about. Well, it was a pretty good video on Max Stirner recently. So, I was actually kind of interested because I'd seen a few of your videos, but I hadn't known that you were like a big Max Stirner fan.
I'm a Max Stirner fan. I don't know if I'm a big.
Not like
Max
a big.
Yeah,
I understand what you mean. Like, but it's like
he's definitely an influence. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're interested in like Egoist, that's kind of like a very fringe idea, I guess. So like if you have any like a little bit
so I got interested in Max Stirner because of a podcast that I was introduced to called Sovereign Tech, which I highly recommend. If you haven't checked out, you should check it out. Even if you're not a libertarian, he talks a lot about privacy and security and all that other stuff, and it's important to kind of know what you're getting into when you sign up for these social media companies or these free things that websites offer, because a lot of time they may be free, but they're not really free. What they're actually paying for is your privacy and your security, and your internet and your digital life is just at risk. And he talks a lot about that stuff. And one of the things he kept one of the things that he kept talking about was Max Stirner. And I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And I was like, I'll check it out. And I bought a copy of the book, and I found it really hard to read. And mostly because a lot of the time, a lot of the book, he's kind of talking like a little satirically to kind of point out the flaws in Hegel. And I didn't understand Hegel. So I'm just kind of like, what's going on here? And I just kept trying to reread like the first couple chapters over and over again. Like, I don't understand what he's saying. And someone told me like, no, just get past that. If you don't understand something, just keep getting on into it, and then you'll kind of get it. And I did. And it took me a few read throughs to finally get a hold of what he was talking about. And I was like, this is really good. But there was always something bugging me about it, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And then someone told me, even that said, I still liked a lot of the stuff he was talking about. Yeah. And I was like, okay. And then someone told me like, oh yeah, there's another egoist book you should probably check out called the Satanic Bible. And I was like, yeah, isn't that kind of just like edgy, Ayn Rand, atheist stuff? And I was like, whatever, it's cheap on Amazon. I'll buy a copy. And but there was something in it that kind of really resonated with me. Like a lot of the stuff about the atheist stuff, like, yeah, it's kind of cringy, but in 1966, like all that stuff was needed because, the Christian landscape at the time was way different than it was post the Rational Response Squad. But like
there was a whole Supreme Court cases of people just being like, my child doesn't want to pray in school. It's like, oh, how dare you? That's what it was at the time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
yeah, so I can understand that stuff, and it's still kind of important. It's important topics to cover, but looking at it now, it's kind of like, fedora tipping. Yeah. But the stuff that I found really interesting was the kind of touching on Epicureanism, and the kind of going like, hey, all these spooks that people talk about, these ideas that people hold over their own, they're bad and all. But there is like this intrinsic kind of need for wanting like spooks, like something you want something to identify with. You want symbols, you want traditions, you want rites and stuff. And Anton said, look, you can either follow these ones to your detriment, or you can follow these ones that are completely harmless, that may have a little bit of beneficial effects because, how kind of psychology works, like if you believe something to be true, then, you're going to subconsciously like work towards getting it done. And that it came from a place of just made up nonsense. So why not just follow these ones as kind of like a placeholder for you to kind of go upon your life? And I was like, that was the problem that I was having. I couldn't put my finger on it. And I was like, that was the problem I had with a lot of the Max Stirner stuff, where I don't think you could unspook people. And one of the podcasts I tried to start up, and it only lasted one episode, was Unspook the Right. And after that episode, it became very clear to me, I don't think you can unspook the right. And I don't think you can unspook the left either. I don't think you can really unspook anyone. Even a lot of this Max Stirner people that I ran into were always talking about how we need to get rid of property, and property is theft. And I'm like, did you even read the same book that I read, where he was talking about that's a stupid argument?
Well, that was what your last video touched upon. You kind of like went over like how like, no, like actually property, it's like the alternative translation is like the unique and its property. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of egoist thinkers, like they try to come up with ways like, okay, everyone's spooked. Everyone has these kind of like ideas that kind of like Max Stirner is about like, you could either, be an egoist that's unconscious, or you could be a conscious egoist. So I think a lot of egoist thinkers are kind of trying to propose like ways that you can be like Rand. A lot of her thoughts are kind of like, here's how I think you should be an egoist. Like here's kind of the way she worked it out, or maybe somebody like Nietzsche or like Ragnar Redbeard around Tom.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there was ever any kind of things that kind of connected Nietzsche to Stirner. Even
it's contentious. Some people argue that some people are like, I've read the introduction to The Ego and Its Own, and the person was like, fuck Nietzsche, I hate Nietzsche, like, he's retarded. But then another anarchist, left anarchist, Emma Goldman, it's like, oh, Nietzsche's awesome, totally influenced by Stirner. He's like unspooked, he's a woke anarchist apparently. But so people have all sorts of opinions of Nietzsche.
Yeah, I like Nietzsche. Generally speaking, I like Nietzsche. Yeah. I don't think I agree with anybody 100%. I don't think anybody should agree with other people 100%. I I really hate the hive mind type of thing. Where it's like, well, you disagree with this, well, therefore you shouldn't hang out with us because you can't be one of us. You can't use the coveted libertarian word if you don't accept the NAP as sacrosanct. I'm like, okay, then don't call me a libertarian. Then I don't care. I'm not. I don't
all the time. Like, I read this one person. Like, oh, well, you read that one person, so you should be a Marxist materialist. And I'm like, well, no, I can read people who are Marxist materialists and like find interesting things. Like, yeah, I like some of their points, but like, I'm not like a Marxist. Like, that's kind of very boring just to read. And I tell people like, it's just boring to read people you agree with all day.
Yeah, I like reading things that I don't agree with. And that kind of led me to where I am today, where I have a lot of disagreements with most of the anarchist libertarians that I run into. But I don't think that it leads me astray. It just leads me to different methods of coming into the same conclusion. So, like, I'm not a big fan of the Austrian school. Though I do find value in it. So I mean, like, I'll watch Mises lectures.
Yeah, I love Mises lectures. I love Rothbard. I read a lot of his books. Actually a big fan of a lot of Rothbard's economic takes. I think he's very smart, good writer.
He's not a fan of his methodology, is most of the case. Yeah. So
sure, yeah. There's a really good debate that was at like Pork Fest where they had what the fuck's
David Friedman and
what are that like really like
it's on the tip of my Bob Murphy. There we go.
Bob Murphy, yeah.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that debate happening at Porkfest, and it almost made me want to go. But again, like, no, I wanted to go just because of that debate. But I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan of going all the way across the country for an event like that.
Yeah, I guess you live on the West Coast. Might be easier for me.
Yeah. So it was like very expensive just to go visit a show, and then when I heard someone recorded it, I was like, "Oh, thank goodness! I want to hear this." Because and it pretty much, I think most of the people that were there kind of agreed that Bob Murphy lost that debate handedly. Yeah, that doesn't mean that it's true. It doesn't mean necessarily that he's right. He just did a bad performance at a debate. But that was about the time where I was starting to kind of move away from the Austrian stuff and more towards David Friedman stuff. So when I heard that was happening, I was like, I need to. This might help me kind of like along my way. And it did. So.
Sure. I think a lot of people, like, they kind of get into, and like a lot of people who are very young kind of switch through a lot of ideas. Like a lot of ANCAPs meet are like 14-year-olds or something like that. And they just always spent their life. And but I kind of didn't really come to a lot of ANCAP libertarian stuff until I was a bit older, like until I was already like through college, basically. Like I only really became an ANCAP maybe about 2 years ago, I'd say.
Okay.
So I've kind of been much more newer to the community, so I haven't been around as much.
Okay.
You're kind of much more of an older, but I've kind of been able to form my own thoughts, read. I think I was maybe more of a conservative when I was a bit in college. I was like part of the college Republicans, actually, embarrassingly.
Oh, I got that even more embarrassing. I was very active in my local Green Party. And I helped campaign for Peter Camejo's run for governor twice in California. And about the time of the 2004 election, I was starting to kind of move away from that hardcore progressive right. And I was becoming more of kind of a mainstream Democrat. So I was kind of in favor of like Kerry when he ran for president. But there was something like there's something wrong here, and I don't know what it is. And it seems like the more reasonable approach is to kind of go with these people because the Republicans under Bush at the time were nuts. So I was like, where do I go? And I just happened to stumble across a show called Penn and Teller's Bullshit. And they started talking about libertarianism, and I was like, what's this? I need to know more. And I kept digging and digging and digging. And about 2005, I became a libertarian. About 2007 is when I got tricked by Rothbard into becoming an ANCAP. That's a whole story too.
So the thing is, like, I would say my family is very, libertarian Democrat. Like that's kind of how I was raised. So I was raised around lots of like libertarian ideas, kind of a more personal choice style of liberalism. Like a lot of the arguments are grounded in like, you shouldn't. I mean, I've kind of moved towards more against abortion as I've gotten a bit older. But people should be free to choose, which I kind of agree. But I think, but when I was younger, like a lot of things like Penn and Teller bullshit, that was actually my father played that for me as like a child. So I'm only like, like I grew up like elementary school, I was watching that. So I actually had, I actually had a good background in like hearing. I watched John Stossel as a younger person. These kind of ideas, early childhood, impressions kind of came back to me when I was kind of in my late college years, and I was kind of, doubting conservatism. Well, I was maybe like a conservatarian, something like that. But yeah, no, I think that's kind of very. I guess my whole entire point is that like a lot of these ideas, like Penn and Teller bullshit, was really kind of important because that's kind of ideas that really implanted with me as a young child.
Yeah, so I was a huge fan of Penn and Teller even when I was a really little kid, and then once I heard they had a TV show, I was like, I don't know what this show's about, and I already was kind of involved with like skepticism at the time. Like I was a big fan of James Randi and all that stuff.
Sure.
And that kind of really helped along my way too. Like, oh, there's even more to this stuff. Like, this is great.
Yeah.
And it was also kind of interesting to see something on like a major network. I mean, it's Showtime, but still Showtime at the time this came out was kind of a big deal. It's less so now. I don't know. Is there major shows on there? Well, HBO was Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah, Game of Thrones, but it was pretty big. I mean, I just remember like the arguments that they were making. It was just hot takes, like things that I would just not
like
even
the Bible
expect to be true. Yeah.
Yeah. When I saw that episode, I was like, oh my God, they're actually going after the Bible. That's
as a fourth, fifth grader that like literally converted me to an atheist. I watched that episode and I was just like, wow, I'm actually convinced like I'm going to be an atheist now. And I was a little edgy atheist repeating those Penn and Teller arguments like as a fifth grader, my classmates trolling them, just being like, oh, you say God's real, but how do you know the Bible's historically true? It's like, because it is. And it was really great. Like, I was a little fucking troll because like I would just like I don't want even good arguments. Like I would just be saying like, oh yeah, like how do you really know? Like, and people just get really fucking like pissy because they're just kids and that's what they believe. And
I think that was the general attitude with Christianity. I think up until we started getting something like the Rational Response Squad, which now looking back on it was pretty cringy. But at the time, like they were trying to get more atheists to come out of the closet. Like if you were to tell like your employer that you were an atheist, that you were probably done for. They'd probably try to find a way to fire you if they weren't an atheist themselves. Sure. Like there was, like you were seen as terrible people, but post that now you say you're an atheist. They're not like you're going to hell or anything. Now they're just like, oh, where's your fedora? So, I mean, it's progress, right? Yeah. It's progress.
Yeah. I think towards the end of my high school years, like actually knew quite a few people who like watched The Amazing Atheist, like even like people who are like, you wouldn't even think of as like cringy internet weirdos or like internet amazing atheists or other atheist skeptic types. I remember discussing with like a person who was on like the football team, about like he loved The Amazing Atheist. So that was like the one thing we talked about at school.
I don't know. Back in the day, I never imagined that everything that is just kind of chill and okay to say these days would be, Sure. Like it's even nowadays, I have a hard time being like, wow, this is like actually shit people are chill with saying now.
Yeah, things have kind of really opened up. I think it's probably the reason why I didn't get into Satanism, because like just from different times, really.
Yeah, I mean,
I think I was really growing in the age when it was becoming heavily normalized to be like atheist, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember my buddy of mine ended up getting a copy of it, and we were like, oh, like what is this like? And the kind of sentiments we had before any of us read it or knew what it was about or anything was like, why would you like believe this obviously false religion is true and then root for the people who are going to lose, the losers in that thing? It's like, doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you root for the loser? And then once he read it and told us what it was about, and it was like, oh, okay, so that's a little bit more sensical, but still seems kind of seems like three edgy, stupid stuff. But so I never paid it much mind, and it wasn't until probably I want to say 2015, 16, somewhere in there that I actually got a copy of it I bought it for Capitalismus. Which is a thing that we used to do every Christmas. We'd go to a bar, we'd buy ourselves a gift, wrap it, say, to me from me, and then open it up and say like, oh wow, this is what I've always wanted. I shouldn't have,
That's very objectivist. It's very like an Ayn Rand move.
Yeah, so we either called it like capitalismus or objectivismus or egoistmus. So depending on who we're trying to appeal to.
Sure.
We should start doing that again. That was fun.
Yeah, maybe next Christmas.
Yep.
Me, you, and whatever libertarian community we can drag up.
So yeah, we got the idea from there's a group of anarcho-capitalists who live in New York City. One of which is a former YouTuber by the name of Tassos, who since deleted all his videos, ripping pepperoni, and Michael Malice, a few other people. Yeah, they all used to get together and do Hoppa's High Time Preference. Hoppa's High Time Preference Hour, and every Christmas they would call that event Capitalismus, and that's what they did. And I was like, I'm still on that idea. I also stole their other idea, and we ended up calling our first meetup, I think it was the Hans Hermann Hoppa, but we spell Hoppa like hops and beer, or Hans Hermann Hops. Yeah. Hans Hermann Hops like hops and beer, sobrietal removal service, and then the whole like wave of Nazi stuff and Hoppa being associated with Nazism, which he really wasn't. But
he's the Property and Freedom Society.
Yeah, we kind of walked away from that because we're like, even though it's bullshit, that connection is bullshit. We don't want people to think so. So we dropped.
I think he did have some stuff with Richard Spencer with his Property and Freedom Society, but I wouldn't necessarily say he's like a Nazi or anything. That's a little bit extreme. He has some leanings. He has some, but I wouldn't. He's kind of exaggerate it.
Yeah. He has some conservative views, and he sees that like the alt-right was a natural response to all the crap that was happening about the time. Sure. But on one hand, he wants to crush the anti-fascist mobs, but on the other hand, it's assaulting with the alt-right. So he was a little bit conflicted, and so he didn't 100% like say they're all bad, nothing good.
Yeah.
So it's like,
actually, just as like a thing to say, like even I'm a pretty big SJW, but I've listened to some of his like would be considered reactionary takes. And I think he actually makes some very decent, fair points, even though I might disagree with him on some issues. I've listened to a few of his like more like, Christian, we need to side with like the white male Christians or something. Even though I'm not really, that's not the libertarianism that I'm really connected to, but yeah.
Yeah, I know he has
I think he makes points about a lot of people being like, just leftism and like kind of the values that kind of promote libertarianism are kind of being
undermined,
lost among a certain group of people. That is a fair argument.
Yeah. So I'm not a big fan of his social conservatism, but I understand it, and I'm not one of those people that are like, oh, he's a Nazi then. I'm like, no, come on. I do have some disagreements with him. Obviously, because he's an Austrian and I'm more of a Chicago, so I have a problem with that. I have a problem with argumentation ethics, which again just kind of ties back into the NAP, which I already had problems with to begin with. So yeah, but some of the stuff that he does talk about, like I started reading Democracy, the God That Failed, and haven't gotten through it yet. It's just everything's been so crazy with me lately. But I was like, yeah, he's making a pretty clear case about why democracy was not a good transition, but I don't know if I'm fully on board with that, but I do think he gives good arguments for it.
It's kind of a weird argument with like I don't know, kind of the feudalism being kind of like some people have argued it's a private. This is not really kind of what he's arguing, but like feudalism is kind of a private law society. People have argued, like some of like the anti-libertarian trolls.
yeah,
make that argument. I don't know. It's kind of conflicting, this idea of like democracy, like being equal with people. Like it feels right, but it also feels wrong. Like there's so many conflicted feelings about like equality and stuff like that, and these like liberal values.
Yeah. So I mean, like equality of access, equality of like the playing field, leveling that, like that's fine. Once we start talking about like, well, this person has a disability, so we should give them extra rights, or throttle other people's rights because these other people exist. I think that's where I'm starting to go. Like, no.
Oh yeah. A lot of even liberals are on that. Just kind of the idea of democratic equality more broadly. It's kind of like everyone coming together in like the commons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's some arguments against, some arguments.
Yeah, and seeing how a lot of these policies like affect, because living in Southern California in a suburban neighborhood, you don't get to see all that stuff. So you're kind of like, oh yeah, you want to help out the poor people, and then when you move to Vegas and you don't realize that you moved into a bad apartment building because you signed documents over a place and you didn't find out where you lived, and next thing you know, it's like, oh, I'm straight up in a very dangerous area.
Did you start to see? Is that you? Did you move from like California suburbs to the Las Vegas hood?
Yeah, well, there was a couple of spots in between. Like, I lived in Hemet for a while, lived in Kansas for a few years, but when I moved to Vegas, because I lived in Hollywood Hills for a little bit because my friend had a room for rent up there, and I was like, oh yeah, I want to live up in the Hollywood Hills. But then it got to be like too much. But when we went to Vegas, I was like, oh, there's actually a city out here. Like, I can actually go and live in the city. Like, what are the apartments like? And they were super cheap, and I get to have things that I like from California, like In-N-Out. And I was like, hell yeah, I'm there. Sign me up. And then I was just looking around and looked at an area of like where all the crimes were. One of those maps. And I was like, it doesn't look like there's a lot of crime in this area, but it must've been a fluke because the area that I moved into later on, you can actually see where my apartment window and clips from Cops that went viral for a while.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, yeah, after I moved out, I was like, man, I moved out to that area. That was great. But I got to see like when, how like all of these welfare programs, like were hurting the people who were accepting it.
Sure.
Yeah, and it was just like, I don't even want to touch this stuff. Like even when there was times of unemployment, I was like, I don't even want to go down that route because it's what's the term?
I've had some experience with that growing up and stuff like that. Definitely come.
Yeah.
I mean, because like it's kind of like you become like, it's very hard. It's like you lose, like you're kind of they're means tested, so you can't, like, it's very hard to get off of them without losing all the benefits that you become accustomed to.
Yeah, well, so let's say that you have Section 8 that's paying for your housing. You have food stamps and all that stuff, but it's contingent on you.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's contingent on you making so much a year. So if your boss gives you a raise, that could put your whole thing in jeopardy. And sure, a 50-cent raise is great. Like if I got a 50-cent raise at my job tomorrow, I'd be like, awesome. Hell yeah.
Not enough to make up for all that.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't make up for it. It will put you back into poverty.
Yeah.
So a lot of people would just quit. And there's lots of times in various jobs that I worked at where someone would be like, oh, I got a raise. I got to put in my 2 weeks or refuse it or something like that. And, after a while I started going like, why are you quitting if you're getting a raise? And they explained this to me. And I was like, oh, okay. So this is a trap. And it doesn't seem like it's very easy to get out of.
It's a big ass gap. You have to fight your own government to get across, basically.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's better off just not taking it. Better off not taking it.
Downsizing. I've been some
eating beans and rice and
eating beans and rice.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason I became a vegetarian, actually, just because I was like live in a dump and eat like the cheapest food available.
Mm-hmm.
But I've done that for quite a long time.
Yeah, like if I want to save up my money for something, like really expensive, and I'll just be like, you know what? Instead of eating out, I'll just cook beans and rice for the next week. I'll just live off that for 1 week, and I just saved a whole bunch of money.
Cheap that you can, yeah. I made a video about the meals that I make, and you can spend like $10 and make a half week. You can eat on less than like $100 a month. Some people are spending hundreds of dollars just on personal, like easily $50 a month you can eat.
Yeah, just don't go to whole paycheck.
Don't go to whole paycheck.
Yeah, don't go to whole paycheck.
Eat beans, rice, stuff like that. Yeah, pretty much
beans, rice.
Beans and rice. That's a good ass. You can find tons of ways to cook up those beans and rice.
Yep, ramen too. There's like whole cookbooks on how to do stuff with ramen. You got to be careful with all that salt though. So
I don't know about y'all, but I'm growing veggies in my yard.
Nice.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Like then you can eat good and it costs less. Even better if you figure out how to do it inside. I'm still struggling with that, but I'm getting there.
The only thing I grow is
gardening. Yeah, but sorry.
Yeah, the only thing that I grow is like super hot peppers and basil because I just love basil. I'm addicted to basil. I got to have it on everything.
Basil seems pretty hardy, I'm finding out, so I haven't managed to kill it yet.
Yeah,
that's something I'd love to like. I don't know. I'm not growing anything right now, but if I ever do start getting into it, I probably want to grow tomatoes and super like really nice peppers and stuff like that. I have a real love for like spicy foods and stuff like that. So
I think
you had some videos where you talked about your your adventures, like consuming really spicy stuff. I thought those are pretty funny about like you falling over and just like writhing on the ground. Yeah, I got some good energy laughs about that. But.
Yeah, I did a live stream not too long ago where I got some Carolina Reapers from Pucker Butt, from Pucker Butt Farms. You know, the guy that developed that pepper. And we did a live stream, and it was rough. It was really rough, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Really rough, but worth it. I enjoyed it because after that rite of pain is over and like your endorphins kick in, you're just like, oh, I feel great now. Stomach's a mess. But I feel great.
I like spicy, but not that much.
Most people are just kind of like babies, like they just can't handle any spice. So if you just like are able to like, you know, if you have any tolerance, then you could just like, you know. I don't know. It's kind of like just like I'm strong. I'm an alpha. I'm real Chad.
God, I'm from Texas. If I couldn't handle a little spice, I'd be dead now.
Yeah.
I gotta just starve to death.
I don't know. From wherever, I mean, it's Texas, but I live up in like the Northeast, so people up here are just like, you know,
is it really that bad?
People will literally be like they will freak out if they like
really
eat a jalapeno.
Like, jalapenos are just so mild. Like I use them to cook all sorts of shit.
No, there's people that I know who will consume like medium or like vague, like you know, like the basic hot sauce at like Taco Bell, and they'll just like, I can only do the mild or the medium. Like medium's a little too spicy.
Yeah, I get mad when I'm like, yeah, I want Diablo or whatever the hottest one is. And they give me mild. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, God damn you.
Yeah,
but they grab it because the mild is red, and it's like, why do they make it red? It's not hot. So, anyways,
sure. Yeah, I dumped Diablo sauce in my Taco Bell because mostly just to like I said, just to prove how Chad I am. It's not that it actually tastes good.
Like likewise at the Asian restaurants, especially Korean restaurants or whatever, when you go and you're like, I want this one, and they're like, that's very hot. Are you sure? And I'm like, yes, yes.
Go there. I'm like, I would like my dish extremely hot. That's what I tell them. Like, don't hold.
Not hold back.
Yeah, I'm the one that orders like the suicide wings when I go to hot wing places or Atomic or whatever crazy name, Kamikaze, whatever they call it, and they're always like, "Are you sure? Like that's really hot?" And I'm like, "I know, I'm fine with this."
Yeah,
you just don't recognize me because I've ordered it before, and they're like, oh, "Okay." Yeah. Then I'll just eat it in the diner, and they're like, "What the fuck is wrong with that guy?" He's just little sniffles, and that's it, and I'm all right.
Not Sam, but.
I don't mind getting a little bit of sniffles and stuff. Too much more than that, and I'm like, this is a chore.
I mean, a little bit of pain's kind of good, though. That's like the thing. Like, you like pain, you know, just a little.
Yeah, but that's why I climb on shit, so I can.
But I mean, like a lot of pain, but like that sting of that hot sauce. The pain's pretty good. You know, it's part of the experience.
I don't know, Dill. I fall up the stairs on a daily basis. I don't think I need the extra pain. I have a cat. I live with a cat.
Yeah. Wow. So you're saying you living with that pussy, getting all that pussy, keeping all that pussy to yourself, my dude?
It's abusive.
Yep. Cats are evil. I got one.
I love cats, but I don't have any.
I love my cat. He's just also kind of like made of sharpness and.
Yeah.
Yep.
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 Sat there and said "yep" for 20 minutes.
Just crack a beer open.
Another episode, yeah. Another.
Episode of King of the Hill.
Yep.
I'll go stand out on our street corners and like.
So yeah. So should we talk about the nap or something?
I don't know.
Yeah. I was just like for a second. I was like kind of like looking over like what else did I prepare to talk? Or just kind of like bullshitting. Yeah. You want to talk about the nap?
You may have said it before, but what specifically do you not like about the nap?
So like she said, I guess I'm a spiritual fan of it. I guess I like this the idea of it. I like it as I like it as a rule of thumb, but I don't think it should be like the only ethical principle that anyone should follow. There's lots of other things that don't fall under the NAP that I think should be condemned. Plagiarism is a good example. Doxing, innocent people. That's a bad idea. Things like that. That's. I'm not going to say doxing is bad outright. I think there's a place for doxing. So, like for example,
journalism, maybe.
If you're an furry on the internet,
like if you go to like the Wikipedia page, well, this was years ago, the last I checked this out. It may be different now, but a lot of the examples that they give as, you know, like historical examples of doxing, like a lot of them aren't bad. There was an instance where a former aide of Jenna Jameson, you hijacked her Twitter account or something like that, and then she asked 4chan to find out who this was and dox him, so that she could find out who was doing it, and it turned out to be one of her aides. There was like Tom Likas did the same thing with Kobe Bryant's accuser of rape. There's lots of stuff, you know, that, you know, there's examples, or like when a pedophile is on the run and nobody knows who this pedophile is. Doxing was there was Sean Wingdingland. There was a libertarian YouTuber, very, very small libertarian YouTuber, who uploaded a video on his YouTube channel. And the only thing that we knew about the guy was his name was Sean. And he had his daughter in, and they were talking about how he molests her. And the internet was like, holy crap, find out who this is.
Doxing too. To me, that feels more like whistleblowing, I guess, or something. Well, you know, like it's a defensive measure either of oneself or someone else. It's not like an aggressive act of malice, which is the kind of doxing I can't stand. A lot of people do that to silence people and shit.
Yeah, that's stuff's terrible. Same as swatting and stuff like that. But the general principle of doxing is basically no different than copyright. You know, it's like you don't own the letters and numbers that make up your address. I actually did a video about this called Doxing Isn't Theft. By the way, did Dilvany just freeze?
Uh-oh.
She got hit by a frozen beam.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but, you know, like most instances of doxing that we're aware of, that we kind of bump into, they're kind of bad things, and they should be condemned. But they don't fall under the non-aggression principle. There's lots of things, you know, that would be, you know, that probably would violate the non-aggression principle, that most of us would be like, yeah, but the alternative was probably a little bit better anyway. So like in instances of like the trolley problem or something like that. So, I mean, in spirit, like 99.9% of the time, like I think that's a good kind of rule of thumb to follow. Oh, she's completely gone now. Uh-oh. She needs to link to her on StreamYard. We can say whatever we want now. Let's say all the bad words that you can't say on YouTube. No, I was
kidding. I almost said one of those words the other day. I was like, somebody told me if you said what was that? What was the word I used instead? Scarerist, that they would shut you down.
Scarerist?
Well, that's the word I used in place of saying the word that will get you shut down. Somebody said that one. I mean, there's like lists of them from what I can tell. I gave up giving a crap. They're going to shut us down one day, probably. I don't care.
Yeah. But going back to the NAP, the NAP, so there's some problems with it when you try to apply it as some sort of objective morality that should never be broken, and people will try to like come up with these explanations about, you know, how it follows from these first principles, and I just don't find them compelling, and a lot of times I see kind of holes in the reasoning. I want there to be something like the non-aggression principle that's objective, that everybody can look at and be like, this is fine. You know, maybe we need a couple of other things to patch up some holes here, like saying, yeah, doxing is wrong in these types of instances, and maybe you shouldn't let, you know, your kids starve to death. Things like that, right?
Yeah, so you're not really against it. You're just like, this should not be the only pony in town.
Yeah, and there's other things to consider, and
I get that.
I don't think it's. And I don't think it's adequate as a framework for legal structure. So like that's not how you should base your law on necessarily. There's examples where like you can just be like, well, who cares? Who cares if, you know, someone steals a paperclip, you know, from your desk? Does that need to be like a law? Probably not. Yeah. Here we are.
Yay!
Allegedly, they're back.
Maybe it's
allegedly.
Maybe.
Oof, big oof.
Oh dear. Maybe, I don't know. Could be. The feds are trying to stop us from having this very important conversation. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about the Libertarian Party at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's the right position to have, to be conflicted.
It's kind of like, I like libertarianism. I'm not actually a libertarian. I'm more of like a individualist, anarchist type person.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that libertarianism should be like, I think libertarianism would be a great set of training wheels.
Okay.
And so I kind of support libertarianism, and I'm part of the Libertarian Party. But like, and these days I'm kind of wondering sometimes. I'm kind of wondering, not really on a state level all the time, but once it gets into the nationals, I'm starting to wonder.
Yeah. So I've had kind of like a mixed involvement with the LP. Like when I first became a libertarian, I was like, well, these are the name bearers of organization for what I am, so I'm going to support them. And at first we had people like Michael Badnarik, who is crazy. He's a crazy guy, but at least he's a principled, right? The guy didn't even have a driver's license. He was that much of a libertarian. Minarchist, though, unfortunately, didn't make the full leap. So we had people like that. Harry Brown before him. Oh, hi, Meffy.
Kitty.
We had people like that, and then it started like slipping into people like Bob Barr. And once they nominated Bob Barr, I don't know if you're familiar with Bob Barr, but he was one of the Congress members who drafted the Patriot Act. He was one of the people who wrote sections of that. And once he fell out, once he stopped being a congressman, then all of a sudden he realized that he was wrong about all this stuff and joined the LP. It's like, isn't that convenient? But he ran for, once he was nominated over Mary Ruwart, I just sent them a letter, because they sent me a thing saying like, hey, do you want to donate money or whatever? And so I used the paid return posting envelope they gave me, and I just sent them a little handwritten note saying, get me off of all your newsletters and stuff. I don't want to be involved with you guys anymore. But as the party started like getting worse and worse and started nominating people like, well, Gary Johnson at his first campaign wasn't too bad, but his second one was just terrible. And all these little kind of embarrassing moments that they've had. Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to your show.
I'm so sorry that I dropped out.
It's okay.
Yeah, I'm back. Thank you.
About something of interest.
Yeah. We were talking about my involvement with the LP. But anyways, yeah, like after they started getting more and more absurd, and there started being things like the Libertarian Socialist Caucus and stuff, which like one of my co-hosts on my podcast, who, though he hasn't been on in a while, is James Weeks, the guy that danced naked at the convention. He's involved in that as well. I'm starting to be like, maybe I should get involved in this to kind of try to push things back in the right way.
The right way.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I and Paxton decided to get involved like we are these days. It's more because like we don't really necessarily like the way things are going. We'd like to help try and fix it, get it back on track. It's kind of hard to say how to do that though. We're just kind of like flailing at things and just trying to fucking patch. Like, I don't know. I'm like, wait, you need help? Let me help you. I don't know what to do. I'm gonna fucking. I don't know. I think it starts with us actually getting off of Facebook.
Yeah. We should talk about that. Delete your fucking Facebook account. That's probably one of the best things you can do in your life.
Yeah, I went into I tried to find my local area, and it was so hard because I hate Facebook. I wasn't even thinking about it as a place that was valid to look for the Libertarian Party, right? So I didn't find them forever. And then finally I was like, oh yeah, well, I guess I could look on Facebook, and I did, and there they were. And like I got involved with them, but like the first thing I said to them was like, hey, if you guys really want to reach more people and get new people and shit, you got to get the fuck off of Facebook.
Yeah.
Like, get out there. I don't know if you need help, and I'm willing to help. I don't care. We got to get out there and start talking to people. What is it my dad used to say? You can't win any battles if you don't go to the battlefield.
Yep. But see, like, I'm not really, if and when I do, which is probably more likely, if I do, I need to I guess I need to lay the table a little bit. I tried to get back involved and started looking them up. I realized that like the Libertarian Party in Nevada, it seems to be dead. Like I don't think there's anything there. I know the office is not there anymore. I ended up getting a job that was near the other office, and so I walked by there, and I know that Pohannes wasn't the lead of the I don't know if he was the lead of this whole entire state or if just Clark County, but he used to run that office and he left, and so that office has just turned into like another kind of studio for his other businesses. But I haven't found anything. All the Twitter accounts are dead. Like they haven't tweeted anything since their diss about Ron Paul. And yeah, the Libertarian Party of Nevada just got really bad after Pohannes left. And they started saying things like, Ron Paul was the worst thing to ever happen to liberty type stuff. It's like I have criticisms of Ron Paul, but
extreme.
Yeah, that's very extreme. And it's like, I think the good that he does like far outweighed the bad. And so I just kind of don't support him. And I don't support him. And I also don't take shots at him because he is very important. And he's a lot of people's journey. And I don't think that the little small problems that I have with him are worth getting into. They're not worth people like fighting against. He's generally overall, for all intents and purposes, a good guy. But anyways, so I'm trying to get back into it and stuff, and I couldn't find anything into it. But what I want to do is not so much get people elected, because I don't think that's helpful. What I'm more interested is that Ron Paul effect, where he gets on platforms that people are paying attention to during elections, because that's when people are paying attention to politics, and say things that make sense and say things that resonate with people. It gets people interested in those ideas who otherwise would have never heard of it.
Yeah.
And that's what Ron Paul did very well. Why not have something like that?
Normalize the topic these days, because like,
and
I think now's a good time for that.
I feel so fucking bad. I just disappeared for like 10 minutes.
Oh, we were having a great time on your show.
Yeah. That like stinged. You're like, welcome back to your show. And I was like, oh, it stung so bad.
That's happened to me before on some of my live streams, so don't worry about it. I was just like, I just don't say the N-bomb while I'm not here.
Oh god.
That's okay.
Get my account down.
No, I just was like, oh damn, that like stung. I was like, damn, like sick diss, bro. Like, I'm gonna commend you.
I didn't mean it as a diss though.
No, it's all good. It's all good and fun, man. It's all good fun. All right.
But if I had to choose who I'm liking out of the presidential contenders, I'm definitely going to go with either Dan Berman or Longhorn? What is his name? Forget his name.
Oh, Hornberger.
Yeah, I'm leaning more towards Hornberger just because he seems like he's going to be the most accessible to most people, whereas that hat is a lot of turnoff to a lot of people. So
I like Dan,
but I do like Dan. He's a cool guy. I had him on my show.
Probably because I've got to talk to him and everything, and he's so just Dan, But Hornberger. See, I don't have anything against Hornberger. He doesn't do anything wrong, but to me, he feels a little.
Well, he wasn't on your show, so
boring. He's boring. He's what is it
That's
we
true.
call it? He's milquetoast. Like I don't think he's gonna catch anyone's attention, unfortunately. Like he's safe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Which is why I still like Dan too, even with the hat. Which I do like the hat. I do like the hat.
That I'm not trying to hate on Hornberger.
I'm not hating on him. I'm not hating on anybody.
Yeah, me either.
You are right though about like a lot of people. I have a friend. He does college radio, and he's like a conservative-ish libertarian. He's like a conservative libertarian. I sent Dan Burnham's the information because the actual Burnham people, whatever his campaign guy, he was like, oh, I possibly want to have Dan go on college radio or something. So I was like, oh yeah, I gave him the contact. But they said, no, I don't want to talk to Dan Burnham. He looks like cringe. That's what my friend said. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the hat is funny and all. But
but a lot of people interpret it as cringe.
Yeah. So
that's unfortunate. I was just using that as an example. Like, not that I dislike Dan Burnham, but that's just that's the main reason why they didn't want to speak to him.
Well, I mean, I think he knows that it's a contention. He's brought it up before. He even put it to vote from his constituents as hat or no hat.
Yeah.
And
That
like,
would fall.
I think that he mentioned that like now when he's debating, he shows up with the hat, but he takes it off.
I think it looks worse without the hat. Like I saw him at the
think
debate.
it looks strange without the hat. Like it weirds me out. I like it, but I am constantly. I like the whole like.
I don't know.
Wait,
he has like very like thick eyebrows that are like
as vermin.
He kind of like looks like that. But...
I think that's too much, and he doesn't follow it up with a lot of like explanation, so it's just confusing to a lot of people. And stuff, but like Dan, he's got a little bit of weird, but he's got a good way of talking after that.
Sure. I looked over his website and it looks very interesting, but I didn't really kind of get any explanation. Like if you're not really in on what he's talking about in terms of the policy, it didn't really seem like it was convincing me. Like he had like the whole thing like I support free healthcare. And like if you're a libertarian, you'd probably get what he was saying, but it just didn't come off. Like I tried to like read it from like just like a neutral party, and it just kind of seemed very confusing. A lot of his stuff, so
it might be.
Yeah, I haven't really talked to Dan Brennan much, but maybe a couple times in voice chat on Discord. But besides that,
I think there's only two that I know of that I'm vehemently against. One sort of against.
Lincoln Chafee.
Well, oh yeah, make it 3.
I'm not cool.
Lincoln Chafee, obviously, I forgot about that. And that would be Vermin Supreme, which I do like the idea that he kind of pokes fun at the whole process. I like that, but at the end of the day, he does talk a lot of Marxist nonsense, and he also posts a lot of things about how rent is theft and all that stuff on his Facebook. And it's like, what the Libertarian Party, really?
He kind of came off as an anarchist, but I don't know. I haven't followed. My friend, who's like a big libertarian, like anti-Trump, like libertarian, he was like, fuck Trump. I think he voted for Trump, but he's like, I'm voting for Vermin Supreme. That was talked about on Facebook.
I hate Vermin, but I wouldn't vote for him.
No, I wouldn't vote for him either. I do appreciate the troll, but from what I understand, he's been like a lifelong Democrat, and I kind of find it hard that he's just all of a sudden
a lifelong Democrat.
Now he's a libertarian because libertarians think he's funny. It's like, I'm pressing next.
I thought he said some like stuff that sounded like he was an anarchist in a few interviews. That's why I kind of thought more highly of him. But maybe you're right. I don't know too much about him. Cause I remember in this one interview that he did at I think it was in 2016 at like the New Hampshire. He went up to the New Hampshire primary and tried to like debate people and stuff. And I'm trying to remember his, but he kind of came off as like, oh, like free ponies, but it seems like his free pony was like a critique of like government handouts or something like that. It seemed like he was phrasing his goofy policies as like critiques of. But maybe he was just doing that to play to the libertarian crowd.
I don't know. Maybe he was because, like,
he's always been a troll candidate. So,
well, of course, yeah.
And the other one I don't like is Kokesh, which I've talked about Kokesh at length. I don't know if you're familiar with my disdain for him. So,
I've always known about him because he talks about agorism, and
so like
that's one of those big things.
What do you not like about him?
So
enlighten us.
I want to preface this by saying that these are claims that I'm making and not on the behalf of anyone on the show, unless they want to co-sign on this later. But from digging into like his past, it seems as though he has like a long history of ripping people off. He has a long history of faking a lot of the elements that go into his protests, like his his protests where he smoked weed on the Capitol, where it turned out he was just smoking tobacco. He from people who have talked to me personally, who have just left his compound or homestead or whatever, saying that they were working long hours, they weren't getting paid lots, they were getting barely any food, and anytime they complained about it, he'd always insist that they work harder and stuff like that. And I was like, that's very kind of Jonestown-y, minus the Kool-Aid.
I didn't know he had a compound. I'm gonna just to stop you quick. Like when you said compound, I was like, yikes! I'm very turned off by owning a compound. That just sounds very like
I didn't know about that. I'm gonna have to read about that.
He also has the best place to hear about that stuff is to actually go to Jackfest, which is Jackalope Freedom Festival, which is kind of used to be called Pork West. The idea was like, hey, let's have a pork fest on the West Coast, and it's out in this middle of unowned land that the federal government thinks it's owned by the Mexicans, and the Mexicans thinks that no, it's in America, we don't own it, and the people who own it don't even have the deeds to it anymore, so they can't claim ownership to it. So it's in dispute. So it's basically like almost like an anarcho area within the United States. And somehow people get together and organize it. Like no one person does. And if anybody asks from the government, like, who's throwing this thing, we just go like, Jack, but I don't know Jack, so I don't know what you're talking about. But anyways,
that's great.
Yeah, but a lot of the people there would like just leave and say like, yeah, I just left and it's a terrible place and I'm not going back after this. This is my way out. And so there was a lot of people like that. And then the whole issue with him and Voluntary Japan, who Voluntary Japan was critical of his run for president, saying that it was very unprincipled as a voluntarist to run for president, other than anything is just like, hey, I'm using this as a platform to get my message across, whereas Kokesh wants to get elected and then use a series of what are they called? Executive orders to shut down the government. Which one won't work, but either way, he still says that like that's you can't do that. You're still violating the NAP by doing this stuff. And he was just very critical on Steam it, and because of that, he was losing a lot of support on Steam. And allegedly, I have to use that word because there's some definite illegal stuff going on here. Allegedly, his campaign manager reached out to a black hat InfoSec guy who wanted him to dox his family, find out where he worked and release all that information, find out information on his kids, where the kids who went to school and potentially harm them physically. And the black hat was like, oh yeah, we're going to get this guy or whatever. And then when he started doing digging, like who this guy was, he was like, oh, he's just a guy who's critical of your campaign and you want me to like physically harm his kid? Fuck you. I thought he was like legitimately a bad guy.
Damn, I hope they're not watching this.
Yeah, so that actually sounds kind of
this InfoSec guy handed all of that information over to Voluntarist Japan and said, like, here's the conversation that I had with Ben Farmer, his campaign manager, and here's where they're saying explicitly that they were willing and okay to do, to harm you and your kid and send your information over to these troll farms in Russia to fuck your life over. Do what you will with them.
Yeah, that's kind of actually very concerning.
Well,
thank you very much for actually communicating that to me. I kind of was like vaguely warm. I had known some stuff. I'd seen some Kokesh content in the past, and I had a mildly positive view of Kokesh's work. I mean, like, I didn't think he was great, but I was like, I think he seemed effective in the past, but I was actually unaware of these accusations. I'm gonna have to look into them. Thank you very much, Jim.
I will send you a link to.
Link me all the information on Discord then.
Yeah, I'll link you the stuff. There's a podcast that I did that I ended up having to re-upload again after the whole scandal came out because we did this episode exposing.
Is this on Lulberts?
Before then, this is on my podcast, The Lulberts.
Okay.
So
I don't always watch that as much, but
so I'll post it in the private chat here, so you can have a link to it.
Okay.
And after that happened, we felt that it was important to re-release the episode and then put an addendum talking about all that stuff that happened with Voluntarist Japan. So there's lots of interesting stuff in there if you're really interested in who Kokesh is and all that stuff.
I'll add this actually to the live stream notes, just so that like anybody, because actually I'm not saying like I fully I haven't vetted any of the information, but it's worth looking into.
That's why I've made it very clear.
You're actually raising
all the claims here should be directed towards me and not the other people on this. I'm making this claim on my own.
But just you've made quite a few. Even if he has a compound, that's very suspect. Just the fact of him owning a compound.
It's like a homestead.
Okay, but you, I don't know, you labeled it as a when you said compound, I was like, it kind of primed me to be like, I'm just going to back away from this dude. Nobody who owns a compound is up to anything good. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
If I ever buy a compound, shouldn't trust me anymore.
Yeah. I'm running a cult.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Just be concerned when I start buying Flavor Aid in bulk. That's when you need to start worrying.
Well, I guarantee that if this is a cult, we'll never kill you with Kool-Aid because we started out telling you to put it down.
Oh, okay. Cool.
You said you're going to be part of my cult, Mike.
Kool-Aid and start drinking.
Mike, you're too sensitive.
The liver tea has cyanide in it.
Mike, you're too sensitive. You love people. You're too altruistic. You got to be a Chad, like, egoist, like a cold hard sociopath, like Dilvany.
No, I'm too soft and nice.
You're too soft and nice. I wouldn't even dare have you in my cult.
Boat saving too many people and shit.
Maybe we should find out where Blue went and have him talk to her.
I fucking actually like Blue. I would sit down with Blue again. Like, he's a fun dude. Like,
he got ran off the internet though. He's probably never coming back. Yeah.
Off the internet, even? Wow.
Yeah, I have not seen him. Oh, Dilvany's gone again.
Oh no.
Ripping pepperoni. It's probably what it was. It was probably Blue hacking her computer with NetBus. That is some inside baseball.
Oh man.
So is there anything else you wanted to know while we're waiting for her to come back?
Heck, I don't know. I got stumped for a second. My brain is not used to working this late at night. Okay. Usually at this point of night, I'm starting to roll the joint. Yeah. I don't know. Okay, here you go. How do you feel about Sarwark?
So I met Sarwark at Freedom Fest, I want to say 2016. Yeah, that's when they had 2015 or 2016, I forget. One of those years, one of those big campaign years. And we were talking about, it was 16 because Gary Johnson got the nomination by then. And we were all in the smokers area. I don't smoke, but everybody else I know does. And so they were all smoking. And we started talking about Gary Johnson or whatever. And, some guy shows up in a suit and tie, and he's wearing a little name badge saying that he's from, the Libertarian Party. And I didn't pay it much mind. Just like, some Libertarian Party guy. And I know he was hanging around Brett Pohannes, who I was hanging out with there. And, we were talking about how we didn't like him and stuff. And he was like, he's not the best, but that's who the delegates nominated. And if you don't like him, you should show up and get nominated. And it wasn't until like halfway through the conversation or towards the end of the conversation that I started going like, oh, wait, you're the national, you're Nick Sarwark. Oh, hi. I didn't realize who he was. And there was a couple times that I did that thing. I ended up talking to, not Brave and Ruin, something like that. The girl, it's going to drive me nuts. Brave the World. I think that's her name is. She was like a libertarian YouTuber, kind of conservative, did some videos about feminism and why she doesn't agree with it. And she also about MRAs and why she doesn't agree with them. Big YouTuber. And I was sitting there talking to her about Jeff Berwick and why I didn't like him. And she was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then after she left, that's when my buddy was like, that was that girl from that YouTube channel. I was like, oh, didn't recognize her. Anyways, so yeah, I talked to Nick Sarwark, and it seems as though he was kind of like, yeah, you're right, but I don't have any control over it. You need to be in the delegation. It was kind of hand-washy, and I thought that was kind of whatever. I think it was kind of one of those things where it's like, what else are you going to say being the chair of the LP? When someone doesn't like your thing, but you have to stand by the candidate that the delegates nominated. So I was kind of like, in between. I could feel that he was in a rock and a hard place, and I felt like I was kind of in a similar situation talking to him about that. But seeing some of the stuff that he was posting on, social media later and stuff,
I kind of hate his Twitter. Yeah. I kind of hate it.
Going after Tom Woods over stupid things, I was like, that's just out of line for anybody.
Like it kind of pushes some people back away, like people who might be questioning, or what is it I call it, liberty curious. People who are liberty curious kind of like sometimes end up being like, whoa,
yeah, because
of it. I don't like that.
But I guess he resigned, or he's resigning, or this is his last year or something like that, and someone's going to replace him. So hopefully it's good. Hopefully it's not that guy with the mohawk. I'm not a fan of him. I guess like the guy from the Mises Caucus, or at least the guys the Mises Caucus endorses, it looks like he's probably going to get it. So hopefully that's a better thing. I'm not 100% on the Mises Caucus. I hear bad things, but I'm pressing next to it out on a lot of those claims, but whatever. Yeah. I need to get more involved in the LP, I guess. I think that's what it boils down to. And again, not to get people elected, but just to make sure that the name bearer organization of the libertarians at least reflects something that resembles libertarianism. Because we're not getting it with, I endorse Hillary Clinton talk. That's not helping.
Yeah. No, it really isn't. And I mean, I think that one of our biggest problems right now is also that we're just not taking advantage of the technology at our fingertips too. And I don't know, there are several people here that seem to really want to get the ball rolling, so I'm kind of lucky with that I've already met a few good people to, like link arms with and get going. Maybe, I hope. We'll see. Mm-hmm. But like we got really I'm not in Oklahoma, but I'm getting really involved with the people there and they seem fantastic. We've had their vice chair and their chair come on our show and talk to us, and like I really vibe with Kevin over there. He's pretty cool. He really seems interested in like reaching out. Like I keep having people who are like left-ish libertarians, quote, I keep running into them and they're all alienated from the Libertarian Party as is right now. Mm-hmm. Like not all of them, but a lot of them. And like it's nice to see somebody who is like, because like he was far left and now he's the vice chair of the Libertarian Party of Oklahoma. And it's kind of a jump, but like he has a perspective and seems to really know how to talk, like how to get them to talk to the left. I hope we can get more people who are interested in liberty asking the right questions and shit these days. I think that a lot of us know more about, like a lot of the Libertarian Party members know more about how to reach out to the right and pull people from like that persuasion a lot better. We really could all just like stop. I don't know. I hate the economic arguments and everybody being so fucking scared of socialism. Like, dear God, yeah, okay. But can we stop arguing about something that doesn't even fucking matter yet? Like, shouldn't we be working together to keep them from taking more of our liberties?
Yeah, I mean, the anti kind of socialist stuff does work on most of the people who live in the United States. Most people have like a harsh kind of knee-jerk reaction against things like communism and socialism because of just years and years and years of the way the culture was in the United States. Which is, so if that's a good avenue to start. But there also should be other avenues in saying like, yeah, like that's great that you don't like all of these things. You don't like the things the government does in this way. But there also needs to be talk about like how, corporations are so like involved with the government that they're willing to hand over your personal data and you will gleefully give it to them in order to, share, selfies on Facebook and Instagram, like all that information that they collect, it's they misuse it themselves. And they also hand off that stuff to governments willy nilly. And even without them asking, sure, it's a federal regulation that says that if you have logs of stuff that you have to hand it over to the federal investigators if they ask for it. But, there's ways where corporations can avoid doing that stuff. And that is just keep no logs. There's lots of American VPN companies who can't hand over your data because they don't have your data. They have a zero log thing. The only thing that they can do is say like, well, this person has an account with us, but that's all we can tell you. I guess they could tap into your stuff, but if you're using an overseas VPN, they probably couldn't touch that either. So
right.
There's things that Facebook can do, but they can't do it because it's not in their business model. They have to sell you ads. And in order to sell you ads effectively, they have to know everything about you. They have to know more about you than you probably know about yourself. There's lots of times where we hear stories about like how, like for instance, this is one that goes around a lot is there was a female who was a lesbian and she didn't want her coworkers to know that she was a lesbian. And while she was browsing around on Facebook, even though she never liked, favorited, shared anything that had anything to do with homosexual stuff, but because she liked things that typically are of those things. I don't know, Miss Sarah McLachlan concert she went to that she liked, or I don't know, she liked the Birkenstock shoes page or something. Sorry, jokes. but because of things that she liked that they go like, well, lesbians like this thing and lesbians like this thing, and she kind of fits all of those things. Maybe she would be interested in LGBT cruise, and because an ad showed up on Facebook for an LGBT cruise while she was at work, that's how her coworkers found out that she was a lesbian. And she ended up, I think, suing Facebook over this. I don't know what the outcome of that lawsuit was, but she ended up suing him for that. There's lots of stories that you hear. Lots of people.
What about that one that like drove that lady almost to kill herself because she lost her baby and they wouldn't stop sending her ads about baby stuff and everything? Oh, that was pretty heart-wrenching. I remember one of the podcasts I follow, they do internet stuff like that, and they told that story. I was just like, geez. Oh, they don't care about us. They just care about getting that shit through too. And we sign up, we say it's okay for them to do it without even thinking.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't violate the NAP, right? It's like you're signing up for that service, and they say in the user agreement that by signing up for this service, you agree to let us use your information. Possibly, you have that information give off to third parties. That's how we got the Cambridge Analytica thing. But
coming off the internet now too, there are corporations out there that are watching our reactions to things and like recording this stuff. And I can't say specifically which corporation. I don't want to get anybody in trouble. I think there were paper signed, but like there's several of them that are actively doing it right now. And they're out there recording like our facial reactions, emotional reactions and stuff to things. And they're using it to basically like underhandedly, like secretly sell better to us. Like it's tricking us and shit. And we're just okay with that. Yeah. Although like, I don't even know if they're telling people that they're being filmed like that. Like, cause I don't even know. I'm not sure how all of that works.
Yeah. So like, when I still had my Instagram, what I would do is I would like talk a lot about things like Arizona iced tea. Because it's kind of like a Young Lean meme thing. And I don't think I've ever mentioned Young Lean or anything like that, but just because I was constantly posting stuff about Young Lean, posting stuff about like, retro aesthetics. I don't think I was even following his account. Somehow they knew that I would be interested that Young Lean re-released his album on vinyl, which after I was like, oh yeah, I am interested in that, and went on and bought the album on vinyl, that I realized like, oh, wait a minute. How the fuck did they know that? Oh, yeah, that was one of the things I was like, maybe I should start deleting this stuff.
Yeah, I started trying to disentangle myself as much as I can. I mean, that is fucking hard too. You don't realize how entangled you are.
Yep. Like I still have a Facebook account. I just don't go on it. And the top post on my thing, and I don't allow people to post on it anymore, is just saying like, hey, if you want to get in contact with me, here's my Discord, here's my Twitter, here's my my phone number and all that stuff. So just get a hold of me there, because I'm not on here anymore. And every time I'll just pop in to check on things. Mostly had to do with my with my Lolberts page for my podcast, to make sure that things were posted on there correctly. I'll still get messages from people like hitting me up, and I don't even read them. I'm just like, nope, I'm not even going to read it. I don't want them to even acknowledge know that I would be interested in reading messages from those people. I don't want them to have any information. But
I
Facebook,
left mine there, but I shut it down. Now I have to use it again because it's the only way I can get a hold of the LP.
Yeah.
And as soon as I can get them to fuck off of it, I'm not going back again.
Yeah. Was it, I forgot my little train of thought. There was,
I'm sorry about that.
It's okay. It's okay. I do that to myself too. I have ADD, so do that. If you didn't do it, I would have done it. So, geez, what was it?
It's okay. I do it to myself too as well. Like, okay. I'm kind of a stoner, and I'll just be like, oh shit, what the hell was I saying? Dude, what was I just saying? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? You were pretending to listen to me, you ass.
Yeah, I forgot what my whole train of thought was on that. But
where's
yeah.
I don't.
Oh yeah, sorry, Facebook. I was going to say something about Facebook container. So Facebook also collects data on people that aren't even members of their stuff.
Yeah, they have
when you go to different websites, they have
accounts or whatever.
Yeah, like when you go to a page and there's like the little icon that says like, "Hey, do you want to share this on Facebook?" Facebook puts code in that stuff to send that information to them. So they don't know they may not know what your name is. They may not be able to direct ads to you because you're not on the platform. But as soon as you do, because they can connect your new account that you just created to Facebook, they already know what ads to sell you. They already know that you're interested in, reading Forbes, or you're interested in the Mises Institute or whatever. They already know that you went to all those websites. So there's a plugin that I highly recommend people install. I know what it's called for Firefox. It's called Facebook Container. I don't know if it's the same or if there's a different one for Chrome. So you have to check that one. You should be using Chrome anyway.
You need that on top of Brave?
I think Brave might have all that stuff built in already. But I don't use Brave. I use Firefox. I'm much more into Firefox. And
what's it
uBlock Origin.
uBlock Origin?
Yeah, uBlock Origin is just a general ad blocker, which everybody should have ad blockers, because there's other things involved with ad blocking that helps. But there's also a thing called Facebook Container, and what it does is anytime that it runs into any kind of code from Facebook, it just doesn't allow it to run. So they're not able to collect data on you, even if you don't have an account. So all that stuff's really important. Facebook really is the fucking evil empire, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's kind of bad. Man, I just try to get
Google too.
Off of it. I know that like Discord is precarious at this moment because they're starting to get in with like Tencent and fucking Twitch and all that shit. But like it's better than freaking being on Facebook, and I've been trying to encourage people to get there. And I heard that there was another thing that was similar, and I'm trying to figure out what it's called, that we may be making backups on just in case. Because like textually and like as far as your files and stuff, Discord collects everything. There's a copy of everything you type or share. And it just kind of freaks me out a little bit. Sure, they haven't really got a bad reputation for using it against people yet.
They have a bad reputation in other spheres. I think some of the core developers for the thing are really into like really questionable furry content involving minor furries.
Oh no.
So there's that sort of thing, and they've gotten caught a couple of times, and allegedly they had to scrub all that stuff and get rid of some people, but who knows how that really operates? Because I remember there's been some scandals with like core developers inserting malicious code into things, getting caught, and then go, oh no, we got rid of those people, they're completely gone, and then all they really did was just shut everything down from anything that was associated with that name. And then reopening up something on a different name and being like, oh, I'm a completely different person, but they're not. They're the exact same person. They just have to watch their step now. So who knows? The sort of thing happened. I remember there was something called like Emerald. There's a thing called Second Life, which isn't really a thing anymore. Where there was a third party browser called Emerald that it was really popular. And because one of the core developers was mad at actually someone that I knew, he ended up putting a line of code in the welcome page. So when you load up the thing to log in, it would like ping his website. And because so many people used it, it kept DDoSing the website that he hosted.
Oh man, that's fucking rude.
And he got busted, and they took him out. They had Linden Labs banned the client completely, and some of the developers left and went to this other program, which they just used the same code but got rid of all the terrible stuff. And they said, we don't allow this guy anywhere near. Turns out he was one of the developers on that one too. He just changed his name. He doesn't have that alias anymore. So there's things like that. So who knows what's going on with Discord on the back end, unless we're vetting all of these people and vetting the code, which I think it's proprietary. So who knows? We probably won't be able to see it. Hi. Now we can't hear her.
We can't hear you, no. God damn it.
Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Could barely hear it.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, we hear you now.
Oh shit! I think I'm. What the fuck? Hold on. Try this again.
Anything that can't go wrong will go wrong. Oh no.
Well, she said we're gonna try this again, so maybe she meant she was going out and then coming back in. Hopefully. Yeah. Maybe.
We're still live? Are we still live?
I think we are.
We double check.
It says live at the top. Over there in the.
Yeah, it says we're live, but.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Woof. I mean, I like Discord, but I know that it's not necessarily I wouldn't call it safe. I just think it's better than Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah, there's degrees to things. Like Twitter is bad. I'll agree that Twitter is bad, but Twitter is the one place where I will go, only because I know how to play the rules. I know what's allowed on there and what's not allowed on there, and what I can get away with. So I like to push it as far as I can. And trolling on that platform is so much fun.
Well, it's kind of helped us get a decent following here at the Mad Liberty Party too, just going out there and saying our hot takes and shit.
Mm-hmm.
And we've met a lot of really cool libertarians out there and stuff. Like we got to meet Todd Hagopian. He is just the coolest dude. Like, have you ever met him? He's a libertarian in chief on Twitter. He's like super popular on Twitter. He's from Oklahoma.
I think he used to give out stickers back in the day for free, right?
I don't remember if he gave out stickers. I'm not sure. I know he's from Tulsa and he was running for LP chair for a little while, but then he dropped out, and like we got him to come on our show. And he's been so freaking helpful introducing us to people and stuff. He's just a real nice dude all around. I freaking love him. He's He's a cinnamon roll.
A cinnamon roll?
Yeah, he's like super nice and very helpful and genuine. I don't know. I'm sold on Todd Hagopian. I mean, he's not running for anything right now, so I can't exactly this isn't a promotional or anything, but he's just a cool dude. Course. And like, he helped us meet some people. Like, there's been all sorts of people that we've met through Twitter or Instagram. Like, that's how we ran into Dan. One of our intern was like, "Hey, Mr. Dan, would you like to come on this weird show?" And he was like, "Heck yeah, let's do it." And then the interns are like, oh my god, he talked to us. And I'm like, oh god, calm down, it's okay. And then like I was like, oh shit, where's my paper sack? I have to breathe into it.
Sure. I mean, that's the appeal of Dan, isn't it? Like, he's just such a welcoming guy. Like, he's just will sit down with you and talk with you. It's not really something you can get. There's like a genuineness really there.
Yeah.
I forgot that he was running, and I guess his PR manager contacted us on the contact page and on the Lawbirds and was like, "Hey, do you want to have a libertarian presidential candidate?" And I was like, "Well, the last one that offered ran away, so we'll see about this one."
I don't think Dan will run away. He
didn't run away. He did. No, wait.
No, you had a good episode. That's how I learned about it. Yeah. I actually had known about Dan until that Lulberts episode.
Oh, I thought you meant that he just contacted you more recently. I was confused. I was like, oh, he's not going to run away.
No. You already did that episode.
Yeah, he did it before even you talked to him.
Yeah.
That's exciting. I didn't see that. I'm going to have to pull that up and look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still like, okay, I like your stuff, but I'm still a newbie to it. So I haven't seen all your shit yet. Like, Pepsi started playing it at me, and I was like, this isn't bad.
Yep.
I think
I was involuntarily abducted into Jim Jesusness because somebody just came in and started blaring it into my Discord, and I was like, "What is this? I can't turn it down. I'm trying to do the dishes." And then I was like, "Oh well, I guess it's okay. Hey, I kind of like this.
I like Jim Jesus. Yeah,
this is good.
Takes a little bit of time. It's exquisite, fine taste. You know, you have to. It's an acquired taste.
Yeah, I'm like the Ardbeg of libertarianism, I guess.
Yeah,
the Lefroy.
I'm not gonna lie, I was like, this guy's probably a dick in real life, but then I met you and you were really chill and nice, and I was like, whoa, I was wrong.
Well, I am an asshole. I'm not gonna lie about that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of an asshole too.
Yeah. I mean, Jim was pretty cool. Like, I haven't experienced any assholeness. Like, I made that one video, like I said, S-Trick entity, and you were just like pretty chill with me. Like, you joined my Discord server and were like shit posting. I was like, this dude seems fun, and I joined your server.
Well, I don't know. We probably haven't pissed him off yet.
Yeah, and there's also Dapperton as well.
Yeah, like when I went into Dapperton server the first time, they were all concerned because it was like, oh, Jim's been in and asked to him before. Like, what is he gonna do? He's coming in here. What do we do, guys? And I just started shit posting with the rest of them. They're like, oh, he's not so bad. Why is everyone hating on this guy?
See, I don't know. When we joined my server, everybody was like, whoa, Jim is here. And I was like, oh, everybody's
Jim's
so
like
happy.
The cool kid. Yeah.
I was like, oh, cool everyone's happy.
Yeah,
That's
Jim's the cool
good.
kid. The only time in your life you've been the cool kid. I'm just fucking.
I remember that. I remember that.
I'm sorry. I was just being.
Oh, my public school trauma. It's coming back to me.
I feel you. I feel you, Jim. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other presidential candidate that offered to be on, I was really looking forward to. I don't think he's going to come on now. It was Alvin Vora. I think that was his name.
Oh, really? Why would he not come?
I don't know, but I wanted to ask him about his stuff that he was posting about, like, it's okay for 30-year-old guys to date 14-year-old girls. I was going to ask him some questions about that. And then it just fell through and it never happened. And I was like, bummer. I wanted to ask him about that.
I don't know. See, to me,
what's the contention,
it
Jim?
seems like he was focused more on that the government shouldn't be involved in those decisions. I don't know if that's really how everybody else saw it or not. But I know everybody here seems to not like him.
Yeah.
What do you mean, Mike? Concerning that he was posting so much about it. It was like, bro, this is the 8th time this week you posted about that stuff. Like, what's going on here, buddy?
Yeah, like they don't like him. They voted not to talk to him anymore, and a while back. That was a while back. Didn't Sarwark actually throw that out?
I think it led to him losing his seat. I don't know if he resigned or I forget what exactly happened, but I think that it was about that time. It was about that time where he was posting that stuff, and then he just mysteriously stopped being the vice chair. So,
well, that's gonna happen if you start saying about like sex with 14-year-olds. Yeah. That's a pretty hot take. I'm not gonna lie.
I still kind of find it really weird to to hear stories about the Libertarian Party censoring someone. And that's the words they used when they were explaining it to me. And I was like, I feel weird. I don't know if I like this. I don't know how to feel. I wasn't here for this thing, this huge explosion.
You got to keep, it's esoteric knowledge. You got to hide, only once you become like a level 12 libertarian can you know about the relationship. You got to be at least a level 12 libertarian to know about the relationship with children and stuff like that. All the pedophile cults,
Look, hey, buddy, I see you're new here. Let me explain something to you. Egophilia is not the same as pedophilia. I'm just trying to get my life back. Text.
I'm just trying to get
what the fuck did you say about me? I'll have you know I've graduated the top of my class in the Navy SEALs.
Good old meme.
Guys, this has been fun. I keep being told that we got to ask you to come on the show with us one day so we can ask you a bunch of weird ass questions. Like what your favorite color is and shit.
Yeah. My favorite color?
What is your favorite color, Jim?
Blue.
Hard question.
No. No, sorry.
Wow. Are you a secret
off the street.
Want a yellow or black, Jim?
I like blue. That is my favorite color.
I like purple.
I'm gonna go with blue.
Okay. I like black. That's my favorite
this
color.
kind of purple.
It's like a very dark black.
Dark black's not a color.
It's such a cool color too, though.
Exactly. It's because I'm a nihilist, and I just reject all meaning. Not the most.
I eat black pills for breakfast. Get on my level.
God. Are those ones that are flavored like licorice? Because I'm in.
Oh, black licorice is amazing.
God, I fucking love it so much, and I never have to share it because no one around me likes it, and I'm like, cool.
Yep.
Get the fuck out of here, then. I gotta freaking be alone with my fennel.
Fentanyl.
Fennel.
Your fentanyl.
Leave me in the fentanyl. Just get out.
If you like black licorice, you should check out the stuff that has salt and ammonia in it. It's like Slovak. That stuff's amazing. It sounds terrible.
Ammonia. That does sound kind of gross.
It's great. Don't knock it till you try it.
What is it now? Is it like a drink or
no? They're like candies.
Or
it's licorice, but they add ammonia and salt to it, so they're not black anymore. They're almost kind of like a dark brown.
Huh.
And they're like it's like really big in like Europe, like in around Holland and Sweden and those countries. Yeah. I can't remember what it's called. It's something like Slovak or something like that. It's
tell
weird.
me if you remember what it's called so I can look into it.
If you look up licorice, salt, ammonia,
like licorice,
you'll find
salt,
it.
ammonia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty solid advice.
I'll probably find it.
Don't look it up on the Google, kids. Y'all go to DuckDuckGo.
All right.
Something. Anything. Freaking Ecosia, for God's sake.
Salmac. That's what it's called.
Salmac.
Right. Salmac crack.
I don't know. Kits. I like a lot of weird shit. I might like it.
A lot of weird shit.
Yeah, salty licorice is great.
We like the weird shit.
Yep.
That's cool.
I also am a big fan of absinthe too. I got a bottle of it. You probably can't see it. Yeah, I got a bottle of absinthe over there.
I've only ever had absinthe once. It was in the SCA. Somebody brought some back with them from overseas.
I've never had absinthe, to be honest.
It's great. If you like black licorice, you'll love it.
Or maybe I have had it now that I think about it. I'm trying to think. Actually, it tastes like black licorice.
Yeah, it's very black licorice.
Yeah.
I like Goldschlager because it tastes like black licorice. Oh, God, it's so good. Isn't it Goldschlager that tastes like licorice? Which one is it?
Goldschlager's cinnamon.
Oh yeah, you're right. It's
Jaeger.
Jägermeister. Yeah, Jaeger. I love Jaeger. It's really bad for because I drink it and I forget how much I've drank because it's like drinking candy.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get like Mike dancing with all the strangers and like freaking hitting on everybody in the bar, and they are like, "Come on, Mike, you got to go home." And I'm like, "No, don't be lame. The fuck up off me, boomer." And it's just terrible shit. And then when you get home, you have to deal with everything feeling like it's gonna slide over and drop you on the floor.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the first time I got drunk in college, it was on Jaeger. Like the first time I got like seriously like wasted. So.
Yep.
Not me. It was Keystone. I fucking hate that shit, but I love it too because of nostalgia.
I almost didn't drink liquor in college because when I got there, people handed me like beer was the big thing. People weren't liquor drinkers where I went to college. Everyone drank beer, and I was just like got it, and I just didn't like it as much. I'm a little bit of a West.
In college, like I hung out with the older people, so like I just got stuck into college parties when I was in high school. So like I got ragingly drunk as a high schooler, and then just kind of got like fell out of the interest of being drunk.
Well, I'm more fresh out of that, so yeah, that's
like I think I got tired of being hungover, to be honest. Like I went crazy with it for a while, and then I was just like, "This is awful." Ugh. I hit rock bottom, throwing up in the bathroom of my job because every time I smelled tortillas, I fucking got sick, and I was just like, "Maybe this is it. I think I'm done with this. I'm just gonna smoke weed forever and be happy because weed does not make me throw up."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen. I don't know. I'm sorry. It's hard to relate to you boomers. So.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, really.
Yeah. The only thing I get drunk on is Monster Energy. Then talk about how great Doom was. Doom was a great game.
Doom.
Fucking love Monster Energy.
Doom was a great game.
Doom was a great game. Indeed.
Yeah. So was there anything else that you wanted to ask that was on your list?
Yeah, I mean, like, I completely just, like, missed a lot. I just dropped out.
Yeah.
I forget exactly what we all talked about. Fuck.
A lot of it was, like, LP
I thought.
Yeah, we talked about a bunch of LP
related stuff. You guys talked about the nap. I wasn't here for that, but that's all right.
Yeah, we had a little bit on that.
Talked about Max Stirner. We talked about. I mean, if you guys have nothing else you want to talk about, I'm kind of a bit like shooken up because I'm fucking bashing my computer trying to get reconnected. So.
Yep.
I mean, all I really planned to talk about was, the non-aggression principle, Nietzsche, Max Stirner, stuff like that. I think we talked about a good check of what we wanted to talk about.
Yep.
anything else that you're interested
versions of the nap that you wanted to talk about, or arguments for the nap?
You guys kind of did you guys? I mean,
I just basically talked about like why I don't
why you don't support it. Yeah.
I just see it as kind of like a good rule of thumb and nothing more.
Sure.
I like the nap, but I can't disagree with you. Like I can't refute you because I kind of agree with you.
I think my favorite argument I've so far seen for the nap was in Dapperton's Discord server, where some person said like, I prefer the truth over guesswork. And that was literally their argument for the nap. They said like egoism is just guessing about what you should do. Like I want a definitive answer. Like that's
that'd be easier.
Yeah.
But is it really right?
Sure. I was like, yeah, like you could just declare like truth superior, like aesthetically superior, and then just will your morality into existence.
Mm-hmm. But doesn't mean it's true or objective or anything. Yeah. It just means now you have a guide. Okay.
I just feel weird, like that's people on Dapperton's server were making that argument, like legitimately. Like I don't think I'm strawmanning their argument. They were like, just truth is better than not knowing. So,
what's your least favorite argument against the nap?
Against the nap or for the nap?
Against it, because
okay.
Probably just like
least favorite for and against.
So the worst ones that I've heard against the non-aggression principle would be people thinking that forgetting about the part about the initiation. So they go like, well, if someone steals your stuff, you can't do anything about it because it's like, no, it's not pacifism. Yeah. You can still use force against people. It's just the initiation. So you get the defense and to acquire property that was taken from you. All those are justified under the NAP. Like that's, come on.
Yeah.
At least hear out the argument before you make an argument against it. But that's the most common one I hear. It's like, come on, I don't agree with the non-aggression principle, but my brother.
Some of my I was gonna say some of my subscribers surprisingly are very like leftist for some reason. I have no understanding of why. But they actually make like a very like argument, like a kind of an egoist argument where they're just like, well, yeah, like I just don't like capitalism. I just want to go around. I would be better off if I could just like loot like the capitalists. What do you think about that argument?
Well, you wouldn't go very far. So one of the things that Stirner talks about that a lot of people just seem to forget about when they talk about Stirner is that Stirner, even though he didn't use the word explicitly, he talks a lot about like having empathy for people. And he's not saying like you should have empathy for people because that's the right thing to do and all this kind of flowery language. He goes, no. It's because if you don't, everyone's going to think you're an asshole and they're not going to want you to hang around anymore. And if you don't hang around anymore, you can't get access to the things that you need to get on for yourself too. Sure. So there has to be like a level of like empathy that you have to extend to people and say like, all right, I'm going to help you help this old lady cross the street because now everybody in the community knows that I'm the guy that helps little old ladies cross the street. So when I go and want to do things, they're going to be like, oh, we'll give you a discount or we want you to hang out or come up because you're such a nice guy and you help that old lady cross the street.
Yeah.
You don't come into my store and steal stuff. So, I'm probably going to give you like a discount code or something. So by helping people, you're going to have to do that along the way in order to make people happy enough to help you out when you want stuff. So it's in your own and I think Rand talks a little bit about this, but she doesn't.
It's in your own interest to have property rights and respect other people's rights. It's kind of. But I think that's what came with the non-aggression principle. She was like, well, if you think about it egoistically, like looting other people is bad because then people loot you. So you should support rights.
So
I mean, I kind of agree with that. I just kind of like it seems to be the only actual like objection against libertarianism and kind of like the nap that like I actually think really take seriously. Because people kind of believe like in a divine right of like democracy. That's the other argument that I really hate. Like people are like, oh, the mob. I'm like, okay, yeah. It's like that doesn't really mean anything to me.
I love how democracy is just like a given. Like you should just like it just because it's democracy. That's like, but why? Well, why though? Can I not question that? And as soon as you start questioning it, people start going like, well, what do you want? You want to live under like a fascist rule where they can tell you what to do? It's like, is that the only other option? I don't think it is.
I was having a chat with some of my family, and I expressed some mildly anti-democratic sentiment. And they immediately were like, "Oh, what do you support, fascism?"
That's where you just go. That's where you put on your Swedish headphones and you go, "Yes."
What was I gonna say? I don't know. There's some arguments. There's what's her name? Deidre McCloskey. She seems to have a very She's an Austrian economist. She seems to have a very favorable view of democracy, and she calls bourgeois equality this idea that we all come together as a society and we're all fundamentally equal under liberalism and such. That's what? I
said that's weird.
Yeah. I don't think she's an anarcho-capitalist or anything. I thought she's just a libertarian. But I don't know. A lot of people have been kind of trying to make these arguments that there is something that we have gained, we have advanced as a society by adopting values that everyone is fundamentally equal under democratic equality. The idea that people can express their own opinions is fundamentally democratic. That's the only real argument that I've heard that has made me kind of rethink my antagonisms towards democracy. Not necessarily saying I'm in favor of it, but I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't heard any real good arguments for democracy. I mean, but
I've heard some nuanced things do you really want the idea people have said democracy is just expressing your opinion or something like that, or being able to
I mean, if it wasn't, I wouldn't say that America was a democracy at the time. We're more of a democracy now, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to get some. There's going to be some comment going actually, we're a democratic republic. It's different. It's well, okay, so it was North Korea.
Who gives a crap? Yeah.
Yeah, but anyways, but I think the amount of people who could vote in the early United States around the Industrial Revolution was somewhere around the realm of 6 to 20%. I don't think anybody had any hard numbers or anything, but that's what Spooner projected. So I'm going to go with him. He sounds because he was around at the day and he was very politically active.
Did he have a projection for the Democrat? Did he have a? Yeah.
He had an estimation of how many people. Okay. So in no constitute, or was it no treason?
He had. I think it's something I think it's probably his two names or something. I think it's Constitution of Liberty.
I always get it mixed up. So I think it's no treason or whatever. Anyways, he says there's roughly about 6 to anywhere from 6% to 20% of people who actually vote. He's trying to make a case that voting defensively or voting at all doesn't imply consent, and voting doesn't violate any rules if you're doing it defensively. But anyways, he says about 6 to 20. So if you have 6 to 20% of the voting or people who could vote, I wouldn't say that's democracy, but that was the kind of playing field that led to something like the Industrial Revolution, which gave us things like the vast amount of wealth that we see today. So is it possible that could have worked if the United States was something more than what Hamilton wanted, which was a monarch? Who knows? I don't know. We weren't around for that.
I guess the argument you were trying to make is that these kind of arguments of bringing people in line, we're all one, abolishing classes and just having a country of democratic equality. It's also very much a modern idea. So that kind of idea that liberalism succeeded because they made everyone fundamentally equal is not 100% true, or it's what kind of you're really getting at. That's actually a really good point. I didn't actually.
Yeah, we can imagine something like Pinochet would be a really bad example, but the straw man version of Pinochet, where they're libertarian, Pinochet was a libertarian, but let's say that he was a libertarian, there was liberalism under it. I mean, it's possible that liberalism could exist under a dictatorship where all he does is just go, no, we're just going to smash capitalists and that's it. That's all we do here. It's at the government, but that's not what he did.
Hayekian argument,
So it's possible, I guess, and not have a voting system at all. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, Hoppe gives some pretty good arguments the other way, but I don't know if I'm 100% on board. Because on the other hand, you have to consider that the DPRK is a de facto monarchy. They don't say that they are, but it's all.
The meme is they don't pay. There's no taxes in North Korea. That's the meme, which I think goes to show that taxes aren't necessarily the most important thing. Yeah.
That's not right either, because what they do is they say we're not taxing your money because your money is actually our money and we can take whatever we want. So it's not really taxation. North Korea does that a lot. North Korea will often go we don't have money. Yeah, we don't have concentration camps. We call them something else. Like,
I've heard what they occasionally do is they'll just say like, oh, the old currency was invalid and you can only trade in, let's just say like a few 100,000 of whatever their currency is, and so people like lose their savings. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. There's lots of stuff to kind of consider. I think trying to make broad, sweeping generalizations about things that are so different. Like different democracies are very like every other democracy is completely different. Every other monarchy was completely different. And sure, you're going to have like a king that's going to go like, yeah, I see these subjects as my property, and I want to take care of it for future generations. But then you have his son, who's just who if he lived today would be like a college bruh. Who would be like, nah, fuck it, man. We're going to spend everything on partying and give me all your stuff and fuck you and be Prince John or something like that, right?
Well, but Stern's argument, like Stern actually makes that argument in like the Ego on its own, like kind of like you have the, the leader of the country, like the prince, the sultan, whatever, and he might run the country for good, but like maybe it just might be better to be your own ego. That's kind of what libertarianism is about. Like you are your own advocate, really. Yeah, you're your own king. And then you don't need to rely on, the benevolence or the self-interest of another king.
Yeah. Or the benevolence of other people's interpretation of the NAP.
Yeah. I mean, can't we have arbitration if you land on somebody's property and they want to like nuke you for like accidentally touching their property?
I already know how I'm going to get rich in Anarcho-Capistan. I'm going to be the first company ever to offer free flagpole arbitration. We will land on any flagpole and do arbitration on anyone who's dangling from a flagpole.
Oh God,
it'll be a loser pay system, but it'll be free initially. So I'll make millions of dollars that way. That was really inside baseball, but
esoteric entity. That's one of his arguments. Like David Friedman, who's a really great libertarian and genius, like he was like, well, what if like you like fall off a balcony, land on a flagpole, and esoteric entity, and you're like the person's like, oh, well, you're on my property, get the fuck off. Like, are you gonna fall to your death or hold on to the flagpole? And then esoteric entity was like, well, why don't we just have arbitration
on the flagpole? It was beautiful.
I mean, I just don't understand what kind of asshole's really going to shoot you if you're like, okay, and you just slide down and walk off their property. Like,
there's lots of assholes in this world.
I'm sure there are, but I mean, like, at that point, then everyone's like, that dude's an asshole. He wouldn't even let you walk off his flagpole when he doesn't want you there.
Well, to be fair, wouldn't you tell Asso to drop from your flagpole too? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, like.
If Kokesh fell, my flagpole, I'll be like, you're violating my nap. Let go.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
Oh, no. You muted.
Oh, you're muted. Uh-oh.
Hello?
Videos.
Yeah, there we go.
Back.
I wanted to have good relations with esoteric entity. Like I just made like one video where it was like a goofy, like cheeky, like I think he makes some like little like crazy claims. I just like made fun of his like, he talks about all the time how the state's gonna collapse any day now, and we're gonna usher in the libertarian. I'm like, I just literally the most like goofiest critique, and apparently he hates me or something like that just because I made a goofy little.
God, some people take jokes too seriously.
Like, I know, like Jim Jesus has shown up and he's like, fuck esoteric entity, what a loser. Dapper has good reason to hate esoteric entity, but I was like, oh, well, that's fine, but I don't really hate esoteric entity too much. But apparently he fucking like hates me.
Yeah, he'll bang the drums, where me is just like, oh, you want to know my opinion? All right, here you go. Or I'll have some fun or post some memes, and that's about it. But
like you were there when we rated his live stream, and we had that joke about on Finchernaut's video, Mike, where he said something like, it was like, he was arguing against Finchernaut's egoist talking points, and he was like, oh, libertarianism is not about who has the biggest guns. And then I had posted in the chat something like, I have the biggest gun, Ubu. And they legitimately were like, Dilvany, like, what is your, what you need to post your gun info so we can compare.
Like, people were trying to tell us,
yeah, like ooh, like
they're talking about penises, and they just kept going like they didn't see it or anything. It was so funny.
I think it's important to have a good bit of self-deprecative humor. You should be able to laugh at yourself, and if someone else makes fun of you, you should learn. If not appreciate it, at least laugh at it or something. But, you know, people made fun of me, and it's just kind of like, oh, that's funny. I get it.
Yeah, that's fun. I made fun of you. I made a few jokes, but just laugh. It's like fun.
Yeah, I mean, I misspoke on my podcast before.
Yeah,
you know, or I'd catch myself. You know, I'd say something like, there was one video I did where I actually where I was talking about, like, you know, communists are terrible, or anarcho-communists are terrible, and anarcho-capitalists are good, or whatever. And I kept jumping back and forth between the two labels. And at one point I said, I'm capitalist. And someone in the chat room was like, someone not in the chat room, but in the comments was like, aha, got you, buddy. And I was like, and I just responded like, damn it, I was so close to having you fooled all this time. Like, you gotta have some sense of humor with this stuff, and not just get all ass hurt anytime someone makes fun of you. Like, because you're not going to appease everybody. Some people are going to dislike you. And when I first got onto YouTube, earlier in my YouTube career, like, I remember there was this guy named Garrett who was like this hardcore anarcho-communist SJW kind of guy who ended up leaving for some reason. I don't know. You know who this guy was?
No, I have no idea. I don't know. I'm very new to I was in other communities on YouTube, but I'm very new to this kind of community, like only the past 2 or 3 years. So
I had a video where, like, one of my friends, still talk to him to this day every once in a while, he was saying that, like, you know, what's the term?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Not body dysmorphia. It's
dysphoria.
Dysphoria. So gender dysphoria. There we go.
Gender dysphoria, yeah.
He was like, that doesn't make sense. How do you feel like you're a woman? Like, I don't feel like I'm a man. I feel like I'm just me, and I just happen to be masculine or whatever. And I was like, going like, well, that's just how it feels. And imagine if you just feel a little bit different. Like, I don't know how that feels either, but I'm not going to say that if someone says that they're wrong. And I basically made a video response going like, no, the DSM categorizes it as this. It's a thing. People do feel that way. That's no big deal. Like, you can take issue with the cultural impact of that or whatever, but whatever.
There's fair arguments.
Yeah. And I was just saying, like, you know, this is wrong. And normally I like your stuff, but I think you're just, you're because a lot of the problem that I saw during like 2016, 2015 in that era was just that, like, there was like some true.
There's a lot of heavy reaction against aspects of SJW culture that were kind of going a little too much, like almost the borderline, like fuck gays, fuck trans, stuff like that. It was got a little too extreme. And I felt that he was kind of falling into that trap, so I made a response to that. And because I didn't understand the DSM that well, apparently, he was saying, like, because I think I used the term as I think I said it was a not a mental illness, but it was a disorder. I said I was a disorder, and I wasn't using the medical term for disorder. I was just saying, like, this is the order. Right. And if it's not in that order, then it has to be a disorder. I wasn't saying that it was a bad or a good thing. And I have ADD. So, I mean, that's a disorder. Yeah, tons of people have autism or other terms of, like, mental issues. Like, it's not, like, there shouldn't be a stigma or anything. It's just like,
So he felt the need to make a response video saying, like, oh, Jim Jesus is sex. It's like, well, so hold on, or transphobic or whatever. And I was like, let me get this right. Like, and I made a video response to it. And and looking back, I should have just been like, you're an idiot. Moving along. But, like, you know, his argument was like, you know, because you said disorder, like, we should shame. It's like, here's a guy, right, who is politically opposite to you, someone who could be kind of considered an ally in this particular kind of cause, maybe not 100%, but enough to be like, okay, whatever, but you're going to attack him for expressing an opinion that you somewhat agree with just because of some technical terminology that kind of upset you. And I was like,
that's kind of the word.
This is eating your own, and I'm not even your own. You're just trying to eat your own, but you ran out of people to eat that are on your own. So you're going after someone who's,
Dapperton, for example, like, he's like come to me and like showed me things like, oh, this people on Twitter are mad because I called them a tranny or something. I'm like, hey, Dapperton, like, I respect you and that's all cool, but you probably shouldn't go around calling people trannies. Like, I'll love, it's like, like, I don't know. People are just fucking rabid crazy. It's just, Like if you said something transphobic, I might just be like, "Oh, Jim, like maybe I wouldn't be all like, it's just so silly to act that way." To be,
I do like memeing on stuff, even if it's
I mean, like I can tell if it's a joke or something like that.
Yeah. So I like to have fun or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's like, you do you. Like it all kind of goes back to egoism. It's like, you're the master of your own destiny. If that's the way you want to live your life, then that's fine. Like I don't have to be involved with it. I don't have to like accept it or anything. I just have to be like, all right, just let you be you and whatever.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much my argument. Just like, it's just what I want to do, man.
Yeah. My problem comes when a very small minority of those people go, if you don't have sex with me, then you're a bigot or you're a transphobic. Or it's like, no, I wouldn't fuck you what you identified as.
I mean, what gets me is like people like to call me a transphobe, but I'm like, are you kidding me? Like seriously, I'm fucking trans. Get out of my house. Get out. Just get out.
Sure.
Or like they're like, oh, you're homophobic, and I'm like, what? Do you know what?
What you just said was one of the most insanely idiotic things I've ever heard. But at no point do you incoherent, etc.
You want to stop and be like, "Oh my God, are you okay? Do I need to call your mother? Do I need to call your mother for you? Is that what you need?"
Yeah. I think a lot of young trans people kind of like react against like a lot of boomers who are kind of like, trans people are fucking disgusting, and
we had to deal with boomers calling us all sorts of fucking names.
I think so. A lot of people.
I get it.
I think that's where the sentiment comes. It's misplaced, like what you kind of were talking about, like, oh, you're transphobic, you don't have sex with me, or I think a lot of them are just kind of like I guess like to be like fair to them. I think they're more just kind of being like, we dislike the fact that people are like, I don't want to have sex with you because you're fucking disgusting and unlovely. That's kind of how how they see it. It's kind of they're kind of looking at through a very distorted lens. But it's
very black and white though. Yeah, like to me that seems like a taking away somebody's consent.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I was just trying to explain, like, kind of like, I think they see it from a distorted lens. I was just trying to like maybe communicate that to Jim, possibly how like they would see it. Not just saying it's right. I just wanted to possibly get that.
I don't know. When I was younger, I was pretty knee jerky and angry, and like I didn't always make a lot of fucking sense, to be honest. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until like I started being able to like further explore my life and shit that I started to chill out. And I mean, like, not everybody's at that fucking place.
Yeah, a lot of people are kind of irrational and have like mental problems and kind of like put them out on people, and that's like not cool. Like, it's kind of,
hell, sometimes I'm pretty crazy.
Yeah, I kind of like meme about being crazy. Like, people think that I'm like a crazy leftist because I just make like jokes or something. Like, if you look at my like Discord server, I make tons of posts. I think fascism could work if women were in charge. It's just all hell is democracy. I'm just making all sorts of crazy posts like that. Like, I'll just pretend to be a feminist. I make like tons of. I'm kind of a feminist, but I'll like make like joke feminist takes about like hating men just to troll people, because people are gonna get. Oh, that's the best. You post a BitChute, Jim, right?
Occasionally, I'm pretty bad at it.
Okay. I love pretty comments. Yeah.
I'm pretty consistent about uploading to BitChute when YouTube doesn't like my videos. I just uploaded a video where it's like the cartoon libertarians portrayed as Beavis and Butthead clips, and Viacom wasn't having any of it. So I had to like put it up on BitChute, which it's not there at Viacom if you're listening. I don't know.
No idea. You don't own the Jim Jesus BitChute channel, of course.
No, just some guys imitating me there. Just stuff. I don't know what's going on.
Do you use any other platforms like Minds or anything?
No, it's the only thing.
Steemit, right? Yeah. You followed the Steemit blogs, right?
No, I don't. I'm not a fan of Steemit. Yeah, I've been pretty critical about Steemit since its inception, even though it's starting to get a little bit better. But my problem with Steemit has to do with like basically financially incentivizing groupthink. So the idea of Steemit is if you get on Steemit, then you could basically use your power, your Steam power, to bump up other posts. And the more up posts you get, the more Steam power you have, which you can upvote other votes. And so everybody's trying to post things to get more upvotes So they're always posting the same things over and over again. Like,
Yeah.
And at the very beginning of it, it was all about like, how do you get big on Steam It? Post stuff about Steam It. Like that's all you did. That's all Steam It was just a giant circle jerk about Steam It. And then it turned into like nap. Post if you wanted to post something good on Steam It, it's going to get a lot of things. Just JO the topic of the NAP or voluntarism over and over again, and you're going to get lots of votes. And
I remember Larkin Rose. That's the first people I like. Larkin Rose was really big, and he would just make like he'd make like very posts about like anarchism and stuff like that. But I think he got a lot of his posts were popular just because he had lots of Steam.
Yeah,
like he has a large amount of Steam, and he just upvote.
Yeah,
and then just gets to that.
And that was another problem I had is like, if you already have like a massive social media following, like you're going to do well on there. So when someone like Jeff Barwick hops on there or Larkin Rose or whoever at Kokesh, they already have a lot of
Kokesh was big on Steam.
Yeah. So like they brought a bunch of people on and everybody was like, oh, I know this guy. I'm going to upvote his thing. So the whales were already whales before they even came into the thing. As soon as they pop on, then everybody was like, hey, I know you. So then it also kind of cultures is like, stardom and everybody's trying to become a whale on this platform. But but if I go on there and say like, hey, I have some disagreements with the NAP, my posts aren't going to be seen that much. They're not going to get upvoted. No one's going to notice it. But if I say like, oh, the NAP is beautiful and wonderful, I'll become a whale. And that's not exactly the kind of thing that fosters like really intellectually honest kind of rigor about certain topics. And I find that a problem. And I'm not a big fan of social media in general, especially alternative ones, especially since a lot of the alternative ones like Gab or Minds or anything like that, a lot of them still kind of if there's going to be like, let's say there's just like a libertarian Twitter, right? And people who come on there know that if you go on there, you're going to be dealing a lot with libertarians. They put it in the banner. Sure, communists can come on and argue with us, but that's fine. I think that's a much better way than just saying like everybody's allowed in and say whatever they want, because after a while you start going like, all right, these Nazis are a problem or these communists are a problem. And then they start getting throttled by the moderation team. However, the moderation team sees the world. Then you get things coming back into like Gab. Yeah. It was supposed to be like a free speech platform. Yeah. It was supposed to be a free speech platform.
Well, yeah.
And now it's a conservative kind of circle jerk. And it's
exactly.
Yeah. I just heard it was run by like it was just filled with fascists, and I was like, I don't really want to hop on.
I don't know about fascists, but there is a lot of anti-Semitism. Like everywhere I go on Gab, there's anti-Semitism though.
And it's kind of bitchy though. I kind of like it.
Supremacy.
The thing with bitchy is I like arguing with the anti-Semitic posts because you can actually do. Like some of my like best posts, I'll literally just put like a vague Jewish symbol in my thumbnail, and like, people would be like, "I detect that you're a Jew," and I would just argue. Like I remember I made an argument against like just race realism, like a very like standard argument. I thought it was. I was like, I think you're a little like some of your arguments are kind of, and like people were arguing with me, and then I like convinced them that I was actually a more serious race realist. Because they were like, oh, like we need to police blacks harder. And I'm like, why are you trying to waste good white cop lives saving blacks? I was getting into like an it probably doesn't look very good, but I was really just trying to like troll them.
What do you think about the Fediverse? Because like we could I think like what you're talking about would work really well in the Fediverse because you could just have like this is the libertarian node, this is the anarchist,
or like Mastodon or something like that.
Mastodon node. This is Gab joined the Fediverse. It's not Gab anymore. It's part of the Fediverse.
Oh, okay. So yeah, like if there's I think Michael Malice has talked about this too, where he's talking about like people just need to start segregating themselves again. I think that's what it is because we can't play ball together. We've already tried that. Twitter's a good example of it. Facebook's a really good example of it. We just can't play together. So we need to kind of section each other off, but not become isolated, but still like look at alternative views and stuff. But our social media stuff needs to be kind of, I'm not going to say groupthink or anything like that, but there kind of have to be some kind of cohesion between a lot of these people.
Some positivity to be able to find a place where you don't feel so isolated all the time.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of isolation out there, no matter which group you're in, because we're all smushed in together. So there's always going to be, I don't know. It just seems like everybody's always trying to find somebody to fight, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. I tried to not get too caught up in my own little like world. I think actually leaving college actually made me much more SJW. Like after I left college, I was more like I wasn't really engaging in politics with people. Like I was actually much more like I'd hang around on campus and like talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
But actually just like sitting around like just in my circles like libertarianism, like social justice crap, like, and then I just go talk to people like, what are you like saying? Like it would just be completely like people wouldn't understand really, because I would just say some libertarian stuff or I'd say some like SJW crap. I don't know, that's kind of my, I kind of feel like I try not to segregate like that, because I feel like people then just like then like look at you like you're an alien or something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like going on, well, not Gab anymore. It's kind of dead. But I used to like to go on to Gab and just look around and see what people are saying. I definitely did like looking around at the kind of neo-reactionary stuff, the
like
Dark Enlightenment stuff, because I think they give kind of fresh kind of critiques about libertarianism that's worth kind of considering and waiting to see whether or not it's true. Because, you know, after hearing like the millionth time that, you know, wage labor, or wage labor. Yeah, wage labor too. Labor theory of value and stuff like that is the right way. After a while, you just start to go like, is there anything substantial criticisms in libertarianism? And it gets kind of boring after a while.
Michael Malice talked about the neo-reactionaries in his newest book, right? I believe I haven't read it yet.
Really recommend it.
I still follow some people because I got into like kind of like the red pill and the dark enlightenment, like kind of some of that earlier, like pre-2016, like kind of more reactionary pre-alt-right stuff.
I think
the alt-right
problem is that we spend too much time
I meant like pre-alt-right, kind of like the stuff that was happening before, where you kind of had like a resurgence of like kind of like very like far-right ideas.
Like Moldbug and all those
Moldbug and
so like Moldbug is fairly libertarian.
Sure. I like a lot of his stuff,
but he does offer some kind of interesting critiques about how libertarians are. And I think those are all worth considering. I don't agree with most of them, but it's worth considering.
I actually I like Moldbug a lot. He kind of, even I think, I don't know, my friend President Sunday, he's a fellow YouTuber. He kind of doesn't think he makes anything original, but I think he's kind of inspiring to read. Like just the way he writes and stuff like that, and kind of how he critiques things. He's kind of very fun to read. Definitely inspired. I don't know, kind of inspired much of a libertarian angst in me. I don't know. I don't know. Reading Moldbug kind of inspired libertarian angst in me. Kind of like, like let's. I don't know if that is like an atypical way of reading Moldbug. I think Moldbug made me more of a libertarian, but
I don't know if he made me more of a libertarian, but he definitely made me like
not in the traditional sense. I don't know, not in the traditional sense. Maybe
he did make me appreciate a lot less of like common like libertarian meme responses to things, where it's like so like one of the things that always kind of bugged me was like well,
I've read Moldbug before I became an anarcho-capitalist, so that's
I mean, like I wouldn't say that I don't like the term was it open borders. I think that's misleading term, and I don't think that opening the borders right now would be a really good idea, considering that we have a vast welfare problem. But if they all started pouring across the border and, you know, the welfare system started to crash, I'd be like, not my problem. But anyways, fair enough. But that all said, I really do hate the kind of things that libertarians share, which I haven't seen in a while. So thank goodness, maybe that had something to do with it. But I remember libertarians would share this picture of the Earth, and it would say like, I don't see any borders here. And I would say like, I also don't see any property lines either. So, I mean, just little stupid arguments like that, which they're good at refuting, but their arguments using that as like proof that like we need borders is I think insufficient.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess part of Moldbug's argument ultimately is that like we need kind of like, you know, like a rigid property society. We need rigid borders. We need like an actual elite, like people who are able at, you know, running and organizing things. I don't know. It kind of feels like a very more pragmatic way of reapproaching the same libertarian problems. Like maybe it makes you less of like the libertarian, like I'm a free spirit, but it feels more pragmatic. It feels like he's trying to like, I don't know.
Yeah. But I think pragmatism has a place. I just don't think that people should focus on pragmatism 100% all the time. I think there needs to be at least some level of like principle. There needs to be some level of like, well, what really works? Because we can say anything is pragmatic. You can give any reason for anything being pragmatic, and it would seem reasonable.
Yeah.
A lot of times when people start saying like, well, I'm just being pragmatic, a lot of time it's like,
yeah, I understand. Maybe I'm being a sophist. I think you're right. I'm being a bit of a sophist.
Well, not you. I'm talking about generally speaking. A lot of the people who talk about this stuff. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people make a lot of like market failure arguments. Like, there's all these market failures in society. Thus, we need government. Which I mean, I guess I recognize some market failures, but it's probably not to the extent most people believe on first sight.
And I think a lot of market failures people point out are better than the alternatives of trying to stop those market failures and the consequences that come from that.
Friedman's main arguments was that democracy and like our current decision-making process is in part a market failure.
Yeah.
Because he actually knows what market failures means, which is a pretty hot take argument, but yeah.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Well,
do you want to dunk on Shane a little bit? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah, I made a video critiquing Shane. He's never got back to me. Hey Shane. Hey sweetie, are you gonna like respond to my video, baby? Okay. Yeah. What, do you have a serious problem with Shane besides him being like a standard like Rothbard NAP libertarian? Or?
Well, I guess the big problem is if you challenge him, he goes off the rail.
He had Rucka. I remember Rucka Ali, and what's that other guy, Charles too. I thought his response to that was the most like ridiculous. Like, I was like, he didn't even do anything.
I think both sides of that debate were just awful. just terrible. It was painful to listen about.
Well, they didn't give a good argument against the NAP, but I don't think even I was kind of surprised. Like Shane, like you could easily make an argument, but like he didn't even understand objective. I was like, he didn't really even do any research. Kind of felt. Yeah.
No, I'm not really. I wasn't talking about so much him, but just I do know that someone told me that his criticism of my take on his property rights and first principles was all I did was just offer a bunch of whataboutisms and lifeboat scenarios, and I was like, that's no, like those. Yeah. I think I made like one or two lifeboat scenario kind of things, but if you're going to say that you have an objective system that works every time, no matter what, then you have to consider lifeboat scenarios. You absolutely have to. Even though those lifeboat scenarios are going to be extremely rare, that same exact, what's the term I'm looking for? I can't think of it, but it's been streaming too long, guys. The exact same ethical conundrum can happen. Like the trolley problem, that's probably never going to happen. Like there's never going to be an instance where like people are incapacitated on a trolley line and you have the opportunity that's probably not going to happen. But there are going to be times where that similar ethical conundrum is going to be presented to you. Like what do you do? Like if like the bus driver on a bus passes out and the brakes give out or something like that, maybe that particular thing is not likely, but scenarios like that can happen.
The only issue with I think critiquing kind of the internal workings of a system, like my friend, my ex-girlfriend was an Austrian economist, like that's like her, like she's studying economics, that's her plan. And I'd always like offer like some sort of critique, and then she'd be like, no, it all fits into my logical system. And I think it's very easy once you've constructed your ethical framework to kind of be like, well, you try to point out areas where it breaks down, and they'll pretend it really doesn't, like the whole esoteric entity and the flagpoles. I think it's not always productive to focus on that. I usually just kind of try to, my angles to kind of just like have extreme doubt that like they've solved whatever ethical like issue. Like the Izzat gap is a major one, usually, which most people report to solve. Yeah,
so but that was most of my problem with it. It was like, so he had like a logical chain.
Video, so I can't be.
He had a logical chain, and in this logical chain, I noticed there was a lot of kinks in that chain.
Yeah.
And even from the very beginning, where he talks about the the law of non-contradiction, it's like, well, you can't really talk about the law of non-contradiction if you're going to start going from like every single first principle. That you have to talk about the law of identity. Because how do we know that something is a contradiction if we don't understand identity? So you have to go like, okay, the first one is the law of identity. Then the second one is the law of non-contradiction. And he misstates the law of non-contradiction by saying that that something can't be A and not A at the same time. But that's not it, because O.J. Simpson's a perfect example of something that's A and not A at the same time. He is guilty and not guilty of murdering Nicole Brown Simpson, but just in two different senses of the word. So in the legal sense of it, he's innocent.
Sure.
In the actual sense of it, he did murder them, so he's guilty in that sense of the word.
That's like a semantic issue, kind of like how you semantically organize an argument.
Right. And because of that, like later on in his argument, I didn't notice it at the time I made that video, but later on in that video, he does kind of do that slight little equivocation thing in it. I think he does it with the word responsible, if I recall correctly. I could be wrong. And I think
we had talked about this a couple weeks ago. We had a very similar conversation. I think my main issue that I took with it was his what is his argument? I'm trying to
I can
recall it from. I'm trying to remember exactly how he laid out his argument, like just from memory. I'm gonna go.
I have the let's see the clip somewhere. Libertarian, like he posted on his DeviantArt page, which having a DeviantArt page kind of cringe, not gonna lie.
I cringe, bro.
Fuck you.
So the first one was the principle of non-contradiction, and then he has the consistency principle. The first one that I really took issue with, and I was arguing and saying like this is not a valid principle, is the burden of proof is on the active side, not the passive side. And he's saying that like, because there's a million things that I'm not doing, or an infinite amount of things that I'm not doing, and only a very small finite amount of things that I am doing, it would be unreasonable for you to ask me to justify any one thing, because it's impossible to justify all of them. And I was going like, well, okay, he doesn't substantiate why that is. I can't find anything outside of this that tries to make an argument for that. So I'm just going to say, if there was like someone else arguing this, I would be like, okay, I'll just take them and just assume and steel man him and say that's what he's doing. But I couldn't find anything. But the inverse is also true. There's a lot of things that you are doing that you can't possibly justify because you're doing so many of them. Like I just took a breath. I just said a word. I made a certain noise with my mouth. I have to justify all those actions. And in the process of doing those actions, I've created more actions that I would need to justify. And it would be impossible for me to justify everything. So you can make the same logical case to say, I don't have to justify anything that I am doing, because it'd be impossible for me to justify all the things that I am doing or have done. So that was a big problem. And I think that a lot of it had to do with the kind of meme. It's folk logic. He's saying that you can't prove a negative, which you can prove negatives. Like if you can say like a quality of something is X, right? Yeah. But X does not exist. Well, we can say, well, if I can prove that that this X quality is not possible, then I can prove that doesn't exist. Because if it does, if that X quality is not possible to exist at all, then that makes that whole entire thing not possible. So you can prove negatives.
Yeah. I think what he kind of meant about like, because he'd be like, well, if you take a breath, like it's not affecting anybody. That would be like his, like if you really push him on the point that you had made.
Well, your breath stinks.
Yeah. The issue I took mostly with that is that this doesn't seem like what statists are actually like. He's kind of making this as like, oh, like a refutation of statism, but I don't think statists are arguing. Like if somebody's robbing you, like they're not like presenting a logical argument. Like I think I said this before, like you're not like, I'm like robbing you, like, pay me the money or, die basically. I don't really see how that's like an active force is a matter of, sorry, my brain's, we're talking about the burden of proof. Like I don't know what the burden, what they're supposed to be proving by robbing me.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't seem like an actual. It doesn't seem.
Yeah.
And I also don't see like where he's saying how you can justify something. So like we can say, so like, okay, so let's say that I do create an action against you, and that was maybe he would consider that justified, right? Like someone comes to my house and hits me or whatever. Sure, like he talks about like retaliation and stuff and that, and he says it's fine, but there's nothing in there that says like how can you justify your actions. It's either you have to justify your actions or not, and if they harm someone it's bad or whatever, but there's no like how do I justify this. Maybe there actually is something out there where I can infringe on someone's rights that's justified, but he doesn't specify how it is. He just goes, well, it's unjustified.
Yeah, and then also how he does. I mean, early in the argument, how he presents the consistency principle, like that's kind of how he like tries to bridge the is-ought gap, kind of, or that's how I interpret it. Some people said that I was wrong. Like I think some people have made that argument, but he kind of tried to.
So what did you think he was trying to bridge it with? I'm sorry.
I thought that he was using the consistency principle to argue, because I think he argued that like he made the point that like you could have a true dichotomy. Consistency is preferable. Consistency is not preferable. Then he made that consistency is preferable as a consistent statement. Consistency is not preferable is inconsistent. So there's a contradiction there. And then he used it. Well, if consistency is preferable, then acting in accordance with my consistent libertarian argument would then be the preferable state, which would then his descriptive like things of consistency would then bridge the preference gap. You ought to do what is preferable. That's just it's a tautology, basically. I inferred.
Yeah, I think maybe he was wording that one incorrectly. I'm thinking because when I read that I was like, that's too confusing. There can be instances where someone doesn't want to be consistent. Right. There's lots of people that are like, like there's certain things that I don't want to be consistent on. Okay.
I think he was making the argument. He did say that consistency is always like, it's kind of his argument. Consistency is preferable. So you understand what I mean by that. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it might be wrong, but
like I don't want to be consistent about like something. There's some things I don't want to be consistent about. Like I don't want to be consistent about liking libertarians. I don't want to be consistent with that. There's some that I want to like, and there's some that I don't want to like.
Exactly.
Yeah. The point that I made that there should be there's not necessarily like a relationship between, like it's not a determinist relationship between this is consistent and this is preferable. Like you don't, like he just assumed it like a priori that there exists a relationship. So therefore it fulfills his argument.
And he doesn't really define what he's talking about consistency very much. Like, I mean, because the consistency that I'm talking about is a very different kind of consistency. Sure. But again, if we're ignoring that part about the semantic part of the principle of non-contradiction, something can't be A and not A at the same time. Well, then we have to consider this as well. So I mean, if he's going to include that last little caveat, the same sense. Then we can say, okay, then Jim's criticism about his but for the most part, I just thought that was him trying to give an example of how you be consistent. And I think that it was just too confusing and nonsensical that I was like, this is not a good example. So I was like, for the sake of a steel man, I'm just going to ignore it and just move along. Yeah.
But my video mostly like a lot of the work was kind of like really picking apart like what I kind of interpreted in the consistency principle. That was my main thing. Maybe I was a bit wrong too, but that's another argument against his argument, because we I think we're both very reasonable, intelligent people, and we both looked at his argument. Like I listened to his argument. I probably watched the video 100 times. Like just like picking it apart, and we both have a different interpretation of the video. We both found our own, like I think you have a slightly different interpretation of what he's really talking about. So that kind of really like hurts this kind of argument, like, oh yeah, this is because we don't even agree what it means, really. So every person is probably taking slightly.
And I've heard there's been like, and after I made that video, I started digging through like, well, what are some other people saying? Because I've seen a couple of them. But I was seeing, like, I saw like
one of the best videos, though. To be fair to Shane, I think he does a really good job of putting it together.
Yeah, like I think he does a fairly decent job, but at the same time, I think this is just a really poor argument. I don't know where this came from. I attributed it to him, and it was only because I couldn't find an original source for this.
It's pretty similar to Rothbard. Like if you read For a New Liberty, like this is kind of the argument, and probably is earlier than that as well. But no, I think For a New Rothbard lays out a very similar, like For a New Liberty. No, I said For a New Rothbard. For a New Liberty, if you read like the introduction, like the first few chapters, he kind of lays out the same argument.
Because I also know there's a little bit of Molyneuvian stuff in here when he talks about responsibility of things. I'm like, that's the Molyneuvian kind of equivocation thing, because he does that in UPB where he's like you're responsible for your actions, right? Like I'm able to move my body, and you're responsible in that sense. But then he also says that he also kind of equivocates that and says later that therefore you're morally responsible for those things. But there's no bridge between those two things. He just makes that equivocation and thinks it's the same word, that it means the same thing, but it doesn't.
Sure, yeah.
And a lot of people pointed that out. So like when I'm looking at this, I'm starting to see like little hints of it there. I'm thinking like maybe he's getting a little bit from this Rothbard stuff.
Yeah.
Now that you're bringing it up, maybe he's getting a little bit from this from Molyneux, and just a little kind of grab bag of things. And he's like, here's I'm going to fix this problem, because I think there's some problems with this and some problems with this. I'm going to try to use them to kind of fix each other. So maybe I don't know.
So like I made a short little video just critiquing like a paragraph from Rothbard, and I was originally going to make a bigger critique, but then I just kind of scrapped it because I didn't really think I had anything new to say. But I started reading For a New Liberty again because of the Shane Killian video. That's the only reason why I kind of think there's a big connection there, because I just began reading it obsessively again, just to kind of think about his argument. Yeah.
That's the book that got me into libertarian or anarcho-capitalism. I was already a libertarian by then.
It's a pretty, compelling. Yeah, he writes. I like Rothbard. I started brought up good stuff. I guess. Yeah.
I'm just not on the NAP train at all.
Yeah, that's why I kind of like a lot of your content. I was like, pretty good. Yeah, you had a lot of good content. Okay.
Yeah. Now much more like after reading Machinery of Freedom, I was just kind of like, all right, this is the one I'm going to start referencing people read from now on instead of the other one.
Yeah.
Because it does all that stuff.
I was actually put onto the Machinery of Freedom first before Rothbard.
Okay.
I watched Bit Butter back in the day, and that's what put me onto the Machinery of Freedom. Even before I was a libertarian.
Yeah, Bit Butter is one of my favorite. I mean, Bit Butter and Danny DeCamp, I think are the only YouTubers that are kind of like the consequentialist kind of worldview, Chicago school kind of worldview. Whereas all the other ones seem to be much more Rothbardian.
Yeah, you're consequentialist.
Yeah, I'm a consequentialist. Yeah.
And I'm a consequentialist as well. So.
I think everybody is. They just don't want to admit it.
That was the argument with the Austrian debate with David Friedman and Bob Murphy. Basically, it was like, I agree. Like, there's tons of I love logic. He's like, I love logical arguments, but you also got to do empirical.
Yeah, you have to check things empirically.
I think his argument was that a lot of Austrians do empirical research. They just present their logical arguments and then provide the empirical research.
Yeah. Well, what they do is they don't call it economics. So
they call it economic history.
Economic history, yeah. So Thomas D. Lorenzo is probably one of the better known economic historians, as well as Tom Woods. But Tom Woods has been much more interested in kind of doing less history stuff and more just general libertarian stuff. Yeah, he's doing that kind of stuff, and it's not a diss on any of them.
Tom Woods is great. He has a really amazing program.
Yeah, and I do like how he'll bring on a left market anarchism and not fight with them. Just here's your views. He'll push back on a little few things just to just to kind of keep the conversation interesting. But that's about it.
Malice episode, him and Michael Malice, a very good. Almost anything with Michael Malice is amazing.
Yeah,
but they have really great chemistry. Some of the best.
The best Tom Woods episodes, bar none, there's no exceptions, are the ones where Michael Malice is is with him. Either host there was a couple, I think 2 or 3 of them where he actually hosted Tom Woods' show for him, while Tom Woods was supposed to be the person he was interviewing on the show. I thought that was kind of clever.
That's how I got first into Michael Malice. I watched the Tom Woods show, and I just heard, I think he's a very real. Guy's very intelligent, makes a lot of really good arguments.
Yep. Yeah. I found he was actually a friend of a YouTuber. I talked about him earlier, to Sauce, who actually knows him in real life. Huh? And before he got big in anarchist circles, he was like sharing me his Twitter stuff, and I was like, dude, this guy's a brilliant troll. He's like, yeah, I knew you like him because you guys would troll together pretty well.
Sure, yeah. He's very funny, like all of his Twitter stuff. I'm not as big on Twitter anymore, so I don't really see a lot of his Twitter stuff anymore.
Twitter, having a Twitter account just for Michael Malice is worth it.
Okay, maybe I'll get
that's
back.
The only person you follow. just follow him. No one else, not even me. Just follow Michael Malice. All right. Yeah. Michael Malice is great.
Yeah. Mike's trying to get me back. Mike, not the Mike, not Mike Malice, Mike, Uncle Bobby. He's trying to get me onto Twitter. So yeah.
All right.
Well, that was fun. Sorry about dropping out, but cool. Well, thanks for hanging out with me.
Worms.
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 Worms. All right. Oops, I gotta end the podcast.
Yeah.
Here we are. Okay.